Story 1.
My wife's affair shattered our marriage, a tale of betrayal, revenge, regret, and moving on. Bonnie Lipton smiled as she drove her BMW onto the Atlanta highway. She anticipated arriving home a few hours later than planned, blaming it on Atlanta's notorious traffic congestion. Nick's delay in departure proved worthwhile. Nearly a decade younger than Bonnie, he excelled as a lover, handsome, intelligent, engaging, and quick to recover. Bonnie's thoughts then shifted to her husband Ron, who at 44 lacked Nick's stamina for a fulfilling bed life. Though Ron relied on experience and familiarity with Bonnie's body, returning to him after Nick brought comfort. She realized she had the best of both worlds, widening her smile as she distanced herself from Atlanta. Thoughts of Nick faded. While he was enjoyable company, Ron and her daughter Casey were her true loves. Bonnie desired to spend time with them. With her libido satisfied, she grasped her moods better. Upon returning home, she planned to be patient and affectionate with Ron, recognizing him as a wonderful person and an outstanding husband. Casey, athletic and intelligent, had numerous friends in sports and school. It was common for 2 or 3 of her girlfriends to hang out at their house on weekends. Bonnie enjoyed their company and sensed they admired her as a role model. Bonnie ensured she was always well-dressed. Holding a prominent position in an architectural firm, she and Ron were respected both individually and as a couple. Ron's dedication to Casey's school events, despite his busy schedule managing the family's successful construction company, was unwavering. Bonnie cherished sitting beside Ron as they watched their daughter participate in activities. She was aware that several other fathers liked to steal glances at her. But she also observed that many mothers eyed Ron as if they were vultures and he was prey. On the road, even when Bonnie sat next to him, women often found opportunities to chat and flirt with him, although her attractive husband never seemed to notice. Bonnie couldn't help but notice it all. After spending several hours on the road, Bonnie pulled into her garage only to find her husband's pickup truck missing. It was an unexpected and unusual sight, and Bonnie felt her mood shifting. The least her husband could have done was be home to greet her following a grueling business conference and a long drive home. The house was eerily empty as Bonnie entered the master bedroom. She couldn't pinpoint the cause, but a sickening feeling settled within her. It was nearing lunchtime, yet no one was home. With Thursday approaching and Ron's work and Casey's school obligations, they should have been home soon. Thus, Bonnie unpacked before taking a shower while pondering Ron and Casey's inexplicable absence. Bonnie recalled that her phone had been turned off since dinner the previous evening. Lost in thought on her way home, she hadn't considered why no one was calling her. Ron might have been upset because she hadn't called to thank him for the string of pearls the previous evening. When Nick had ignited her passions, she had completely forgotten about him. As she dried her hair with a towel, she switched on her phone. Ron once again congratulated himself on executing a simple yet brilliant plan to surprise and delight his wife. He had been aware of her scheduled conference in Atlanta for months. Bonnie visited twice a year. As luck would have it, this conference coincided with their 20th wedding anniversary. A few weeks prior, Ron had been approached about constructing a large vacation home for a family in Atlanta. After completing the business aspect of the meeting and feeling at ease with the client, Boyd Drake, Ron shared an idea that had recently come to mind. On the 10th of next month, our anniversary, my wife will be attending a conference in downtown Atlanta. I want to surprise her and her colleague with a nice dinner at a restaurant near her hotel. And to make it even more special, I've purchased a pearl necklace to present to her at the table during dinner. Let my daughter handle this for you, Boyd suggested. She's in college now and knows all the best spots in the city. She can ensure that the necklace ends up in your wife's hands. It sounds like you're counting on luck when your wife returns home, Boyd remarked. Why not go to Atlanta with her and deliver it yourself? I've suggested it before, but Bonnie insists she's too busy to spend time with me. She'll likely have a late dinner and return to the hotel to rest. The next day, I have commitments here, and traveling all this way just to be ignored seems a bit foolish, Ron reasoned. I have another suggestion, Ron proposed. What if I treat your daughter and her friend to dinner? If she agrees to sit at the table next to Bonnie and send me a live video on Facebook, I'd really like to capture Bonnie's surprised expression when she opens the necklace box. I'll share my daughter's contact information with you so you can reach out to her and coordinate everything, Boyd responded. I'm confident she'll be happy to assist with this. Ron arranged for several pizzas to be delivered to his home for a party he hosted to celebrate his 20th anniversary. He extended invitations to his parents, Bonnie's parents, his brother and sister-in-law, and Bonnie's younger divorced sister. They all anticipated witnessing Bonnie's reaction in real time when he surprised her with an anniversary gift. Ron's 16-year-old daughter, Casey, was also present with several of her friends. Ron arranged everything so they could view the video on the large TV screen. Boyd's daughter will sit near Bonnie inconspicuously and stream videos to me via Facebook Live. She arranged for the waiter to deliver the wrapped gift after Bonnie and her CO worker Sue placed their food order. We'll observe Bonnie's live reaction, Ron expressed with a joyful smile. This will undoubtedly be our best anniversary despite the distance. I've ensured that no sound will be transmitted from our end, so feel free to comment, including praising what a great idea it was. Who's that guy with his mother? Casey inquired as Bonnie appeared hand in hand with a handsome young man. Didn't you say she'd be with Sue? I don't know him, Ron admitted. He seems to be a close friend. Bonnie's father responded with a harumph and a frown as the couple took their seats. Everyone around Ron's TV easily caught the conversation. It's nice of your husband to treat us to dinner tonight, the unfamiliar man remarked with a grin. I'll do my best to make this anniversary unforgettable, at least for you. It'll be even better than your honeymoon. Then you better order a steak, Bonnie retorted with a grin. You'll need the strength. My honeymoon was epic. Is it true? The man inquired. Did you have a lover then, or did your husband manage to ring the bells? Ron did a great job, thanks for asking, Bonnie replied. You're the only lover I've had in the last 20 years, not counting Ron, of course. Fortunately, he slowed down. The good news is this. You'll have a much better 20th anniversary tonight than most women. I'll take care of it. Maybe we've seen enough, sister, Bonnie suggested nervously. This isn't entirely fair. Bonnie has no clue what we're watching or listening to. Why don't you turn it off, Ron? We wouldn't want to miss Bonnie's reaction when she receives her necklace, would we? Ron, determined but visibly flushed, asked. Let's keep watching this disaster unfold a little longer. While the couple placed their order, everyone overheard Bonnie calling her companion Nick as the waiter departed with the menu. Another waiter arrived with a neatly wrapped package. Look, Ron must have sent me a wedding anniversary present, Bonnie exclaimed excitedly, tearing open the wrapping. Isn't it beautiful? She asked, admiring the string of pearls. Could you help me put it on? Of course. Just lean in, Nick replied, carefully securing the necklace. Once he finished, he lightly ran his hands over Bonnie's chest. Your husband is quite the romantic. You're lucky to have such a handsome man, commented an elderly woman at the adjacent table. That's true on both counts, Nick agreed with a smile. She has a romantic husband and a handsome boyfriend. Bonnie shot Nick a sharp look, but the older woman simply chuckled at his remark. I gave you a pearl necklace last night, which I think looks much better on you than this one, Nick quipped, leaning in to kiss Bonnie on the lips. That's the difference between a husband and a lover, Bonnie said with a sultry grin. Husbands give us jewelry, and lovers give us pleasure. I'm sorry, but I can't continue, whispered the stunning red-haired girl, likely Boyd's daughter, as she turned off her phone. I should have stopped sooner, but I was so shocked that I froze. I'm truly sorry it ended this way. I'll delete everything from my phone. I have to go. The TV screen went blank, and a heavy silence enveloped the room. One of Casey's friends broke the silence. It's getting late. We should head out. See you at school tomorrow? I don't even know if I'll go, Casey replied, tears welling in her eyes. Dad, can I go home with my friends? I just need to be with them right now. Of course, honey, I understand. We'll talk tomorrow. Drive safely, girls, Ron whispered, his throat dry. I'm at a loss for words, Bonnie's mother began. I think we misinterpreted what was happening. Bonnie loves you, Ron, and is willing to do anything for Casey. Please don't do anything hasty. Ron's other guests echoed similar sentiments as they quietly discussed the situation. After a few minutes of calm conversation, Ron reached a decision. I need time to think about everything. Please find your way out and give me some space to be alone and consider my options. Once everyone had left, Ron began packing his suitcase. Bonnie was taken aback by the flurry of messages and missed calls she had received since she had turned off her phone the previous evening. As she read through the messages, her heart sank. Her sister and mother demanded to know who Nick was and why she was so friendly with him. They accused her of breaking Ron's heart, and Casey was also very upset. Her mother and sister had sent her at least a dozen messages each. Bonnie checked messages to see if she had any from Ron, but found none. How did her family discover Nick, and how much do they really know? Where are Ron and Casey? How can she navigate the predicament she's in? She needed to ascertain precisely what Ron was aware of and what he merely suspected. Bonnie realized she needed to communicate with family members to gauge the severity of her situation. Mother, it's me. I forgot I turned off my phone last night, Bonnie began as calmly as possible. I noticed you tried to reach me. Is there something wrong? Only if you believe losing your husband, alienating and embarrassing your daughter, disgracing your parents, and behaving like a promiscuous woman can be considered wrong. I assume it doesn't bother you much, otherwise you wouldn't be flaunting a pearl necklace from your boyfriend, her mother ranted. Ron gave me a string of pearls for our anniversary, Bonnie countered. Why should this upset you? Your father and I have seen enough old adult films to understand what your boyfriend meant when he said you were wearing his pearl necklace, Bonnie. It's not so straightforward, her mother retorted. Mother, what makes you think I would do something like that? Why do you think I have a boyfriend? Bonnie asked, fear knotting in her gut. Don't play games with me. I'm not stupid, her mother growled. Ron invited us to witness you opening his 20th anniversary gift at the restaurant he reserved a table for you and your colleague. I believe her name was Sue. We've seen this whole sordid story. Your husband treats you like a queen, and you don't respect him. Husbands give jewelry and lovers give climaxes, I think you said. Did you hear me say that? Asked a shocked Bonnie. How is this possible? Ron asked a friend's daughter to do some kind of live broadcast from her phone. He wanted us to see how delighted you would be with his gift. Then we were all going to call and congratulate you on your anniversary, her mother said sadly. Looks like this might be your last anniversary, at least with Ron. Perhaps you'll reunite with your favorite boy once things settle down. Mother, you know I love Ron. That other guy means nothing to me. It was just something to pass the time. These conferences are getting boring, Bonnie asserted. Oh, this changes everything, her mother retorted sarcastically. Ron will feel much better knowing that his wife is not a strumpet and that she was just bored. I assume you left your puzzle at home. Mom, there's no use calling me names. How can I convince Ron that he is the only man I love? You didn't even convince me, so I'd say you have some work to do, Bonnie shot back. Watching you with that man is the worst thing I've ever seen. I highly doubt Ron found it any better. After her conversation with her mother, Bonnie pondered her predicament. Her entire family had witnessed and heard everything she and Nick had discussed at dinner the night before. Recalling her dialogue with Nick, Bonnie realized the severity of her situation. She decided to call Casey. Casey, where are you? Bonnie inquired when Casey answered her call. I'm with Morgan. She's trying to console me because my family is falling apart, Bonnie's daughter replied. We're not falling apart. Please come home so we can discuss this. Where is your father? Bonnie asked uncertainly. He's moved to a cottage by the lake, Casey responded. I don't think he wants to see you. He was so happy last night when he invited everyone to watch you open your gift. You practically broke his heart when you showed up with your lover instead of Sue. Please come home, Bonnie implored, trying to think of what she could say to Ron to earn his forgiveness. After ending her conversation with Casey, Bonnie began to survey the house. She noticed that a laptop and several filing cabinets were absent from Ron's office. The closet in their bedroom was completely empty. It felt as empty as Mother Hubbard's cupboard. Bonnie fought back tears as she wandered aimlessly around the house, noting the missing items. Ron hadn't taken a single photograph of her presence. This realization felt particularly disheartening. Seeking a distraction from her crumbling marriage, Bonnie began preparing dinner for Casey. By the time Casey arrived home, she had managed to prepare a modest meal. Casey was sullen and only spoke to Bonnie when directly questioned. Even then, her responses were brief. Bonnie admitted to herself that her daughter had valid reasons to be angry with her, but she hoped that over time the animosity would, if not fully dissipate, at least diminish. At dawn the next morning, Bonnie entered their lakeside cabin to discover Ron slouched uncomfortably and passed out on the small couch. Several empty beer cans littered the floor. Ron, honey, we need to talk. Wake up, please, please, she urged. Ron slowly opened his eyes and groaned. He rose gradually and, without a word, headed to the bathroom. While waiting for her husband to return, Bonnie decided to brew some coffee. A few minutes later, Ron, refreshed from his shower, joined her in the kitchen, where Bonnie placed a mug in front of him. She hoped Ron would initiate the difficult conversation, but that hope soon waned. It was evident Ron had no intention of broaching the subject. Ron, I'm sorry about what happened. I love pearls. It was a wonderful gift that I'll always cherish. It's just a shame I wasn't aware you'd share everything with your family. It would have been helpful if you'd told me, Bonnie expressed. Go to hell, Ron retorted, infuriated by Bonnie's attempt to portray him as the wrongdoer. His response surprised and hurt Bonnie. Throughout their marriage, Ron had never spoken to her disrespectfully. This blatant change was a clear indicator of the pain she had inflicted upon him. That won't solve anything, Bonnie responded calmly. Tell me, how can I make things right? You're the only man I've ever loved. Let's work together. We can address this. So what specific issue do you want to resolve? Ron asked calmly. The issue is that I surprised you with an anniversary gift at a nice restaurant, where I'd reserved a table for you and a friend. My client's daughter agreed to send a live video of your reaction. I mistakenly assumed you'd appreciate the gesture. Tell me what the problem is so I understand, Ron explained. You know what the problem is, Bonnie insisted. Last night you saw me with Nick at the restaurant. I've dined with others before. Why do you think that's an issue? Ron inquired. You know perfectly well why this is a problem. I told you I was dining with Sue, but I was actually with Nick. You overheard our conversation and learned we slept together. That's the problem we need to address. To clarify, is the issue that I, along with your entire family, overheard your conversation, or is it that you had lovemaking with another? The problem lies with my behavior, admitted a flushed Bonnie, realizing she couldn't go on the offensive in her current predicament. You were simply trying to be kind to me on our anniversary. You didn't do anything wrong. Good, we're making progress. Now explain why you cheated. On me behind my back, for how long, and with how many men, Ron pressed. Let's not resort to vulgarity or offense, replied an emotionally overwhelmed Bonnie. Casey is undoubtedly your daughter. Nick has been my sole partner since we started dating. Your remarks about my fidelity and Casey's paternity were needlessly hurtful. I'm struggling to comprehend your reasoning, Ron retorted. You admit to cheating, yet you insist there's a limit to how unfaithful you are. You want me to be polite and understanding, even gullible, when you claim to belong to just one man. Are you proud of your limited infidelity? And for the record, how long have you been involved with handsome Nick? How often did you conveniently forget to disclose these details when denying being promiscuous? This marks the third conference where we've been carnal, Bonnie confessed tearfully, finally sensing the depth of Ron's anger and humiliation. Apart from you, he's the only man I've been with since we married 20 years ago. It amounted to 2 nights together at each of the 3 conferences, Ron noted. Have you ever been carnal with him elsewhere? No, Bonnie affirmed. It occurred 6 times in total, and I deeply regret it. I owe you an apology. Are you suggesting that a young guy like Nick was only capable of once a night with someone like you? He never engaged with you more than once. What does it matter? Queried a disheartened Bonnie. We probably did it 3 times every night. Now the big question, Ron announced. Why did you engage with another man? Was our closeness so unappreciated, so mundane, so unsatisfying that you sought out a younger, more fulfilling lover? Absolutely not. I was bored, and he persistently pursued me. I proved to be weak. It's not about you or our closeness. It's my own vanity, perhaps a midlife crisis. He means nothing to me, I swear, Bonnie replied. It's evident you engaged with a man who held no significance, Ron reiterated. Did you engage with Mr. Jenkins, the guy from down the street with those absurd shirts? Of course not. I barely know him and I find him repulsive. So he holds no significance to you? Ron pressed on. You just admitted to me that you engage with men you don't love and who hold no significance to you. Jenkins fits that description, so why didn't you engage with him? I didn't say that I engage with any man who holds no significance to me, Bonnie clarified, distressed. I engaged with Nick because he's attractive, polite, and successful. He pursued me. Are you suggesting that you'll only be unfaithful with attractive, successful men who chase after you? Other than a few of these individuals, are you a faithful wife? If you don't love the men you engage with, doesn't that imply you don't love me? No, Bonnie objected, visibly embarrassed. I'm telling you I made a terrible mistake and it won't happen again. I love you, not Nick. How can I? Be sure of this, Ron asked softly. You made vows at our wedding and on numerous occasions throughout the years to be faithful to me. You're a beautiful woman. Handsome, successful men will always pursue you. I can't trust you. I can't even provide you with the great lovemaking you enjoy so much. Don't ever think like that, Ron. I love making love with you. He's different and makes me feel cherished, Bonnie replied. What about Nick made you keep going back to him? Ron inquired gently. Unclean, used, not like a mother or wife. It was the taboo that kept me hooked, not love. What did you do with him, and how? Ron asked quietly. Why does it matter? I love only you, Bonnie objected, visibly embarrassed. I have some things to consider. You stand here telling me you love me, not him, but you engaged in carnal relations with him. It's hard for me to grasp that you're willing to do more for someone who means nothing to you than for the person you love, Ron reasoned. You haven't asked me to please you below the belt for a long time. I wasn't against it. I thought you'd lost interest, Bonnie defended, aware of how feeble her words sounded. Yes, what husband would want that from his wife, especially when she freely gives it away? You assured me on our honeymoon that I'd be the only man you loved, Ron reminisced. You and the handsome guy must have had quite the time. With me, everything was wrong. He never mentioned you? I wouldn't tolerate that, Bonnie insisted. You seem to forget I heard several minutes of your conversation. This idiot insulted me several times, and you went along with it. Remember when he hinted he'd give you a better 20th anniversary than most wives? You didn't object, did you? Why are we wasting time here? Ron demanded suddenly. You found someone new. I accepted it. Seems you should too. Why pretend you want to remain married? It's clear you didn't enjoy being my wife, and let's not even discuss bad lovemaking. You're beautiful, successful, and smart, and I bring nothing to the table. It was only a matter of time before you sought something better. Congratulations, you found it. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Ron, we can't let this conversation end like this, Bonnie pleaded tearfully. We need to discuss everything and find a way back. You can have your lawyer speak to mine. It's over between us, Bonnie. I'm filing for divorce. You left me no choice that day, Ron declared firmly. Bonnie went to work but was confronted in the break room by an angry Sue. Why did Ron inquire about me accompanying you to Atlanta for a conference? You know I stopped attending them after you started spending your nights with Romeo from the Chicago office. I won't be used as a cover for your infidelity. Did Ron contact you, and what did you tell him? I have to admit the truth. I skipped the last 2 conferences. I thought you had informed him that. We were supposed to share a room and attend the conference together, Sue lamented. That's not a concern anymore. Ron found out everything on this trip. I think he's going to divorce me, Bonnie confessed. What else did you expect? Sue demanded. No decent man could tolerate this level of disrespect. I was too blind and self-centered to even consider Ron discovering this, Bonnie replied honestly. He's moved out. Do you realize the choice you made when you slept with that despicable guy from Chicago? Sue asked, her tone softening slightly. I'm sorry you lost Ron, but I warned you this would happen if you kept going like this. I didn't rat you out if that's what you're thinking. I know, Sue. I owe you an apology. I betrayed your trust. I regret not listening to your advice. I don't deserve someone like Ron. Upon learning of Bonnie's infidelity, Ron took a day off from work. He was determined to relocate all his belongings to the lake house before Bonnie returned home. He didn't want to hear her justifications or excuses for cheating. While he dreaded life without Bonnie, he knew he could never forgive her blatant disregard for his feelings or her indifference to loyalty and respect. Her unexpected visit the following morning only underscored the vast emotional divide between them. She offered no words that could ease his pain or facilitate forgiveness for her betrayal. He scheduled an appointment with a lawyer for the following day. The following day, as he prepared to leave the office for a meeting with a divorce lawyer, he received a new email from Bonnie. He debated whether to read it or delete it, eventually opting to open it. True to form, Bonnie addressed the issue directly in her message. Ron felt only despair as he read her confession and plea for forgiveness. It was typical of her to accept responsibility for her actions after reflecting on the situation. She was a strong woman, demanding the best from both herself and others. Feeling hollow, Ron saw no reason to respond to the letter. When Bonnie arrived at Ron's lake house, her sole source of information about Ron was Casey. On Friday afternoon, Casey informed Bonnie that she would be spending the weekend at her dad's cabin, with Ron bringing her home on Sunday evening. Bonnie realized this would likely be the pattern of her life moving forward. She spent a miserable weekend contemplating how she had ruined her life and whether it was even possible to fix it. Had she irreparably damaged her once happy marriage? Upon returning home on Sunday evening, Casey appeared somber. Dad has decided to divorce you. He can't stay with someone who has lost all respect for him. I saw him cry multiple times this weekend. I've never seen him like that before, Casey revealed. Do you realize how much you hurt him? Maybe boyfriend is better than dad. He's not my boyfriend, and he can't compare to your father, Bonnie replied, stunned. It was a huge mistake, and I deeply regret it. Your father is the best man I've ever known. Please forgive both him and me for being doubtful, Casey responded. This isn't the first time you've been with that guy, is it? You've been lying to us for years, haven't you? Bonnie realized it was time to stop deceiving her family. I had relations with him at 2 conferences prior to the last one. It was a mistake, and I apologize, Bonnie confessed. A mistake? That's putting it mildly, Mom, Casey objected angrily. You betrayed Dad in the worst way possible. Didn't you promise to be faithful when you married him? Did you secretly hope it wouldn't count? I know you're mad at me, but not nearly as much as I am at you. Dad is a wonderful man and a great father, you know that. What I did doesn't change my opinion of him. I acted foolishly, Bonnie admitted sadly. As you say, Casey replied before retreating to her room. Normalcy returned between Bonnie and Janet, but communication with Casey became scarce. Bonnie found solace in her job, which remained unaffected except for Sue's chilly demeanor toward her. She attended Casey's school events, usually alone unless accompanied by her mother, which was the only time she saw Ron. He kept his distance, noticeably so, and other parents took notice. The news of their impending divorce spread quickly through the community, leading to crude remarks and insinuations directed at Bonnie. Meanwhile, Ron immersed himself in his business, finding some redemption amidst the chaos. Ironically, Bonnie would receive half of the business. Despite his lawyer's advice to minimize Bonnie's share, Ron refused, citing her invaluable contributions during the company's early struggles. He insisted on fairness, refusing to deny Bonnie her rightful share. Bonnie was taken aback when her lawyer explained Ron's decision to give her half of his ownership in the business. Previously, during a financial crisis, the company had been sold to Ron's best friend Dan, who became a silent partner. With Bonnie now owning half, Ron found himself in a precarious position. "Tell Ron this is too generous," Bonnie urged her lawyer. "He's the one who dedicated his time and effort to the business. If he insists on giving me a share, propose a fraction of what we own. He should retain control to avoid future disputes." Ron remained steadfast. When spring arrived and the snow melted, Bonnie found herself single again and a third owner of Lipton Enterprises. Ron cut all ties with her, even refusing to speak on the phone. Casey expressed her desire to spend the summer between her junior and senior years with her father at the lake house. While Bonnie recognized it as another form of punishment from Casey, she accepted that she had brought upon herself her daughter's disdain. Ron, on his part, was thrilled. He devised plans to nearly double the size of the cottage. Being the owner of a construction company, he effortlessly completed the expansion by the end of July. It was now a 3-bedroom lake house, each with its own bathroom and picturesque lake views. The house had been completely modernized and was now exceptionally comfortable. During the first weekend of August, Ron hosted an open house for his friends and neighbors by the lake, inviting all of Casey's friends as well. Among them was one girl's older cousin, who caught Ron's eye. She had a striking blonde appearance that was accentuated by a rather modest 2-piece swimsuit. Throughout the day, Ron couldn't help but notice that she seemed to gravitate towards him. She laughed at his jokes and flirted with him whenever she had the chance. "So, Dad, are you enjoying the little bikini party?" Casey asked one day when they were alone in the kitchen. "Absolutely not," Ron protested. "She can't be more than 25, and I haven't even considered getting back into the dating scene." "She's 27 and seems quite keen on you," Casey replied with a knowing smile. "She's been asking about your relationship status, age, occupation, basically everything women want to know about potential husbands." "I just met her today," Ron responded. "Don't even mention marriage to me. I tried it once and that was enough. I'm not implying anything other than her seeming interest. I wouldn't mind if you dated her. She's pretty, kind, and you could use someone to help you move on from Mom." Patty doesn't seem in a rush to get married. I think she's focused on her career right now, but that doesn't mean she's not open to male companionship. "Thanks for the heads up," Ron teased his daughter. "This girl is too attractive to be interested in an old guy like me, but I appreciate your trust. It means a lot to me." Bonnie's company occupied the top 2 floors of an office building in the business district. At the end of the same block sat a highly popular Italian bistro. She used to have lunch there every Thursday with a few colleagues from work. Because their lunches were informal, they often saw familiar faces dining at the same time. Bonnie and her CO workers had befriended employees from several other companies in the building. One afternoon, the bistro was unusually crowded, and Bonnie's group couldn't secure a table. An employee from Benson Advertising, situated on the 2nd floor of Bonnie's building, invited her group to join them at a spacious table, which they promptly accepted. After everyone exchanged their first and last names for introductions, the conversation commenced. One woman from the advertising team stood out for her attractiveness and amiability. Bonnie found herself enjoying the young woman's sense of humor as the other ladies playfully teased her. "We don't all wake up to a rich guy with a big house on Lake Henry," Mary, whom Bonnie recognized, teased. "Must be nice to greet the morning sun bouncing off the lake." "Absolutely," the young woman concurred, "especially when you have a handsome man tenderly waking you up. Getting out of bed becomes such a chore. If that's the guy who picked you up after work on Thursday, I can see why it might be tough," remarked another woman. "He seems a bit older than you, but he's clearly in good shape and he's got a full head of hair. Not bad looking at all." "He's all that and more," the young woman chimed in with a wide smile. "He's a really great guy and an amazing lover too." Bonnie's friend immediately broached the topic she didn't want to delve into. "You're not talking about Ron Lipton, are you?" "Do you know Ron?" the young beauty asked, adding, "You have to admit he's quite the catch." "He's a fantastic guy, but he used to be Bonnie's husband," her colleague revealed. "I think we should change the subject." "Don't exaggerate," Bonnie asserted, leaning in toward the young woman and offering her hand. "I'm Bonnie Lipton. I didn't catch your name." "Patty Lawson," Ron introduced her. "I thought his ex-wife was stunning, but I figured he was just blinded by love," Patty confessed. Turns out he didn't do you justice. I hope you won't mind that I'm living with Ron now."
"I certainly can't blame you or him for that matter," Bonnie responded honestly.
"You're a beautiful young woman with a fantastic figure. I can see why Ron was attracted to you. I wonder why Casey never mentioned you to me." "I can't speak for Casey, but I must say you've raised your daughter well. She's intelligent, attentive, and as lovely as her mother. I always enjoy her visits," Patty concluded. Later that evening, Bonnie broached the subject with Casey during dinner. "Why didn't you tell me that your dad has a beautiful girlfriend who's moved in with him? I'd have thought you'd mention something like that." "Honestly, Mom, I didn't want to upset you. I know how you feel about Dad," Casey explained. "I'm still upset about what happened between you two, but I don't want to cause you more pain because of your mistakes. Patty is actually good for Dad. He seems genuinely happy again." "That might surprise you, but I'm glad to hear that Ron's happy. He's a wonderful person and deserves to be with someone who cares for him, even if it's not me. I don't think she's head over heels for Dad, but she really likes him. She's made it clear that her career is her priority right now. I'm focused on making strides in marketing over the next few years." "Are you considering dating again, Mom? Are you still in touch with your conference boyfriend? Do you think you could reconcile with him?" Casey inquired. "I wouldn't consider Nick as a potential partner," Bonnie confessed. "He's shallow, somewhat impolite, self-centered, and vain. I never saw our interactions as anything beyond amusement, yet it turned into a nightmare. Although I was aware of my actions, I shouldn't blame him for my own weakness." "Are you interested in someone else?" Casey inquired. "You're still attractive. I've noticed how some fathers and teachers look at you and make an effort to be courteous during school events. To be honest, I feel like Ron has set the bar high for other men," Bonnie responded with a sad smile. "The reasons for our divorce are widely known in the community. It garners sympathy from women for your father and makes men view me as an easy target. Nick probably found it easy, but I won't make that mistake again. I just can't understand how I could betray your father when I loved him so deeply." Casey was taken aback. "He always treated you with love and respect. Something must have gone wrong." "I've asked myself the same question," Bonnie admitted. "I think I started taking your father for granted. I knew he loved me, and I was overly confident in that love. Somehow, this led me to entertain the idea of being with another man, perhaps because I felt secure knowing I had a dependable partner at home. Ron was my rock. I foolishly believed he'd always be there. I thought I could stray a little and he wouldn't notice, and yet my devoted husband would still be waiting at home. I hope you find a man like Ron when you're ready to settle down and learn from my mistakes. Never take more than you give in a relationship. Be faithful, committed, and truthful. If you're considering something that could damage your relationship, talk to your husband about it. I've shown you what happens when you lie and cheat." Occasionally, Bonnie would encounter Patty during lunch. She was surprised by how much she enjoyed Patty's company. She also felt ashamed that she was eagerly awaiting any news about Ron. Casey refrained from divulging too much about her father to Bonnie, realizing that certain personal details were off-limits to share as his daughter. Meanwhile, Patty freely conversed about Ron with her friends. "It's evident that you still care deeply for Ron," Patty observed during a lunch conversation with Bonnie. "He never speaks ill of you, but it's clear you hurt him deeply. I won't judge, but I personally couldn't imagine betraying someone I'm in a relationship with. It's hard to reconcile that with the person I see and hear from you, someone who seems to love and respect him. I would urge you to keep that in mind when the initial passion wanes and you're faced with the realities of everyday life," Bonnie responded. "I lost my path and paid the price. Love isn't always about excitement and luxury. Sometimes it's about mundane decisions like when to clean the septic tank or what color to paint the house. It all becomes routine, but that's normal. Ron is an upright businessman, a devoted friend, and an exceptional father. I'll always love him, but I betrayed him in the worst possible way. I've learned my lesson, perhaps a bit too late. Last night, I informed Ron that I've accepted a job offer in Seattle and will be leaving in 2 weeks. It's a fantastic opportunity for me. I've always prioritized my career, but I can see that my news upset him," Patty shared. "I'm telling you this so you understand what he's going through and maybe offer him support if he becomes down. He truly is a wonderful man. He may not be my lifelong partner, but I'm sure he'll miss you dearly. Ron doesn't make decisions lightly. If he invited you to live with him, it speaks volumes about how highly he regards you as a person, not just for your looks. Yet he's resilient. I tested his strength, but he emerged stronger. He's made significant progress," Bonnie began with a faint smile. "He'll miss you, but he's a great catch, and I doubt his bed will remain empty for long." "Yes, that's why I'm sharing this information with you first," Patty responded with a smile of her own. "What you choose to do with it is entirely up to you." Just a week later, Ron's closest friend and covert partner, Dan, requested Bonnie's presence for lunch at the bistro. Despite the crowded room, they managed to secure a small table in a corner. After exchanging pleasantries and formalities, Dan proceeded to explain the purpose behind their meeting. "You're aware of that plot of land Ron purchased on Route 21 near the river? I've got a buyer who's willing to shell out nearly $2 million for it. Ron practically snagged it for a steal. The profit margin would be immense. Your share as a third owner would amount to over $500,000, Dan elaborated. Ron mentioned that this land could be a valuable investment, likely to appreciate significantly in the future. "Do you think he's considering selling it?" Bonnie inquired, curious about her involvement in the discussion. "That's the issue," Dan responded. "He's contemplating offering it for a long-term lease instead. He wants to ensure the contract includes provisions for his company to construct facilities tailored to the tenant's business needs." "That sounds like Ron," Bonnie admitted with a grin, acknowledging his astuteness and business acumen. "I'm certain he's crunched the numbers and believes his strategy will yield greater long-term gains." "What's the concern?" "My inclination is to capitalize on a quick profit by selling the land. Planning a decade or more ahead is commendable, but I'm more inclined to secure the funds now. You and I each own a third of the company, so together we could push Ron to accept the offer and then distribute our share of the profits. Ron won't lose out. He'll receive $500,000 in cash to smooth over any potential friction," Dan proposed. As Bonnie listened to Dan's suggestion, she felt her frustration mounting. "Are you suggesting I betray Ron's trust? Do you think money holds greater value for me than preserving Ron's trust, as you seem to imply? Let me make one thing clear. Ron would perceive this as a complete and utter betrayal from both his wife and his closest friend. This would be the ultimate blow to him," Bonnie retorted firmly. "Worse than his wife engaging in an affair with some young guy at a conference?" Dan teased. "You're his ex-wife for a reason. You've already betrayed him. He divorced you for your infidelity. This is an opportunity to seek a little retribution and simultaneously secure a substantial sum of money," Dan reasoned. "I acknowledge that I betrayed Ron, and I take full responsibility," Bonnie responded, her anger barely contained. "I acted foolishly and selfishly, but I never intended to inflict injury upon him. He deserves better than both of us, and deserves far more trustworthy business partners than either of us could ever be. That's precisely why I'll never betray him again. I'd sooner lose every penny than cause Ron further pain. I've already demonstrated that I was a terrible wife, and now you've proven yourself to be a disloyal friend and partner. Ron will have control over my share of the company for as long as I live. In fact, I'll be drafting a new will to ensure Ron inherits my share upon my passing. You should have more faith in his business acumen." With a surge of anger, Bonnie rose from her seat, dropping money on the table to cover her half-eaten lunch. She locked eyes with Dan. "Please refrain from attempting to steal from me again." Nearly a month later, Bonnie opened the door to find Ron standing on the porch. She was taken aback by the sight. Ron had intentionally avoided her since the day she returned from the disastrous conference. "Ron, please come in. Everything is all right. Casey left a few moments ago if you're looking for her," Bonnie said, feeling a rush of excitement at Ron's unexpected visit. "I'm available to talk if you've got a moment," Ron initiated as he stepped into the house that had been his for over 15 years. "Could you spare a few minutes? If you're busy, I can come back later." "I'm not occupied," Bonnie promptly replied, "and I just brewed some coffee. Why don't we sit in the kitchen?" "Thanks for accommodating me so quickly," Ron said, grabbing his coffee mug. "You always brewed top-notch coffee. I didn't even know how to make it when we first got married," Bonnie reminisced with a smile. "It took me some time to get the hang of it." "I didn't marry you for your coffee-making skills," Ron retorted. "You had other qualities that I found much more appealing." "I don't recall you calling them qualities," Bonnie chuckled, "but I do recall you calling them Smith & Wesson on a few occasions." "Yeah, you brought out the big weapons, and I was defenseless against you," Ron admitted. "Patty must have you wrapped around her finger or some other part of her body," Bonnie teased. "She's quite charming. I appreciate how fondly you've treated her. She holds you in high regard. Her opinion of you is one of the reasons why I'm here. A couple of weeks ago, one of her friends overheard your conversation with Dan during lunch. Patty mentioned it before heading out west. She believes your dedication and integrity have been outstanding. I have to agree. Despite how I treated you during the divorce, you flatly refused Dan. Many women whose husbands divorced them so swiftly would seek revenge or at least recompense. I'd never do that to you, Ron. I understand how diligently you work on your projects and how much they mean to you. I also know you'll ensure this property generates far more revenue than Dan anticipates. He's underestimating you," Bonnie concluded. "I appreciate your vote of confidence. Patty helped me come to terms with the fact that you were my partner, even though I often ran the business as if it were solely mine. I want to hear your thoughts and what you'd like to do, Ron stated. If you're inclined to sell this property and split the proceeds, I'm on board. Dan's been pushing for a sale, Ron revealed. I suspect he's short on cash. He believes that selling this land will net each of us $500,000 without cutting into his stake. Is this something you're interested in too? I believe you've got plans for this property that will benefit the company and earn goodwill from the community, Bonnie replied with evident pride. You've never been one to seek quick profits. I've always known you aim to uplift the area while making solid profits. You've got something in mind for this site, don't you? I've been negotiating a long-term lease with General Hospital to construct an emergency care complex here, Ron admitted. It won't yield as much profit as the luxury condo project Dan's firm is pushing for, but it'll still be lucrative and come with a guaranteed contract. Plus, it'll create jobs and foster goodwill. I had a feeling it might turn out this way, Bonnie responded with a hint of satisfaction. You're not just a savvy businessman, but you also invest in the community. That's what distinguishes you from folks like Dan. Dan's all about quick profits, but I don't share that mindset. From what I gather, he pitched his idea to you, and you turned him down. I have complete faith in you, Ron. You've never given me a reason not to trust my judgment. I'll stand by your business decisions, no matter what, Bonnie assured. It might sound odd since you've got every reason not to trust me, but it's true. I've been thinking about how Dan's meddling with your business. It crossed my mind that we should buy him out. If he's short on cash, he might entertain a reasonable offer. It'd be a win-win. He'd be content, and you'd have full control over your business, Bonnie reasoned. I've considered it, but I don't have the capital to pull it off, Ron admitted. We could sell this house, Bonnie proposed. I can find a nice 2-bedroom apartment for Casey and me. Over the years, we've amassed quite a bit of equity. The house is nearly paid off, and you've made significant upgrades. It should provide enough to buy out Dan's share. Now that we're divorced, this is your home. Are you willing to sell it and invest in the business? Ron asked incredulously. I can't promise when the deal for the urgent care center will close. I can't guarantee you'll see your investment back anytime soon or at all. Am I looking worried? Bonnie joked. Remember, I was married to you for 20 years. You'll get it all back with interest. If for some reason it doesn't work out, that's fine. I owe you one, Ron. Money will never make up for my betrayal, but it'll keep you away from Dan. I'll agree to this if you move back into the lake house or with me and Casey, Ron proposed. We'll quickly get you your own room with a bathroom. It's been nicely done up. I don't think that's feasible, Bonnie replied sadly. It's a personal matter, not to mention the dating scene and all the drama it would stir up for you. I didn't consider your social life, Ron admitted. Of course, you wouldn't want to bring a gentleman over when your ex-husband's living next door. Especially not that guy, Nick. It'd be awkward. I don't go on dates and don't plan to start, Bonnie replied. I stopped attending conferences and haven't spoken to Nick since that disastrous trip. It's you who will be inconvenienced. No woman would want to spend the night with you when your ex is just next door. With me around, it's highly unlikely you'd find a woman willing to move in with you, though I wouldn't rule it out entirely. I've seen women fall for you. I divorced you because of your affair and then I moved Patty in with me, Ron posed a rhetorical question. Wasn't my behavior a poor example for Casey? My only justification is that I was feeling depressed and lonely. Another man took my wife from me and my self-esteem hit rock bottom. Patty managed to restore it.
I regret damaging your self-esteem.
I wish this hadn't occurred, but I don't hold you responsible for falling for Patty. She's an exceptional woman. You're single and free to pursue any relationship, Bonnie remarked, adding, I don't think I've ever properly apologized for my actions. You weren't the cause of it. It's all on me. I made a huge mistake, and I'm genuinely sorry for the pain and trouble I caused you. You really hurt me, Bonnie. I've never been unfaithful. I lived for you and Casey. I went from having everything to feeling like a complete failure, Ron confessed. Patty helped me realize that while I may not have been a perfect husband, I wasn't the reason for your infidelity. If you weren't happy with our marriage or our closeness, you could have told me. I would have tried to improve if I'd known. I was just naive, not unhappy, Ron continued. You were an excellent husband, a wonderful father to Casey, and a fantastic lover, Bonnie acknowledged. I lost my way and deserve to be unhappy. It might sound odd, but being unhappy brings me some sort of solace. I feel like I'm paying for my mistakes. Perhaps you could at least come and see the lake house, Ron proposed. I'd like to show it to you and get your feedback. I've incorporated some of the ideas we've discussed over the years into the renovation. I think you'll approve. Casey has a volleyball match in 2 hours. Can we postpone this offer? Bonnie requested. Let's check it out before the match. We can go together, Ron suggested. And then I'll bring you back here. Aren't you concerned that people will assume we're back together if we go as a couple? You usually keep your distance from me, Bonnie pointed out. Yeah, I was a bit harsh, but in my defense, you messed up me and our marriage. You couldn't expect me to be friendly towards you, Ron argued. Actually, you were much kinder to me than I would have been to you if roles were reversed, Bonnie admitted. Your settlement offer was overly generous. We both know it seems like your kindness is paying off. Ron grumbled. We're considering selling the house to buy out Dan's share. I still find it hard to believe that you're willing to do this. Honestly, Ron, you can take whatever you want from me. You've always been honest with me. I know you won't damage me, even though I deserve it. Let me give you a tour of the lake house, Ron suggested, aiming to shift the conversation and compose his emotions. As Ron guided Bonnie through the house, she admired the renovations. You've done an amazing job. Casey's room is spacious, and having her own bathroom is every teenage girl's dream, she remarked. When Ron showed Bonnie the second bedroom, she felt it was time to address the elephant in the room. It's a lovely room with another fantastic bathroom, but I can't stay here, Ron. It would be too painful for me to see you every day and be reminded of what I've lost. We'll sell the house and I'll rent an apartment. I'll be okay. We need to head out soon for Casey's match. Let me show you the master bedroom, Ron urged. It's larger than the others. I'm sure you'll love it. It's beautiful. You've done an excellent job as always, Bonnie complimented, examining the bedroom. That's why your business is thriving. You have an eye for detail. Would you stay with me? And Casey, if you had this room? Ron asked abruptly. I'd still have to see you every day, and I don't think I could handle it, Bonnie replied sadly. I didn't mean for it to be exclusively yours, Ron explained anxiously. I thought maybe we could share it. Bonnie raised her eyebrows, scrutinizing Ron's expression. Are you asking me to share your bed? Since the day I found out about your affair and left, I felt awful. I miss you so much it hurts. Sometimes you messed up big time, but I slept with Patty for months. That lessened the blow a bit but didn't erase it. I wonder if we can move past all this and try to be together again. I won't be your doormat, Bonnie asserted. If you want to punish me further, I won't do it. If I move in with you, I'll be completely faithful and expect the same from you. No more young beauties in your bed. It'll be just me, or I'll be gone in a heartbeat. I've worked hard to regain my self-respect, and I intend to keep it. I love you, Ron, but you have to be all in, or I'm out. Casey was taken aback when her parents walked into the gym arm in arm. She rushed over to them to speak privately. Mom, Dad, does this mean… Casey started, but Ron smiled and nodded before she could finish. Casey hugged her mother tightly and whispered in her ear, Welcome home, Mom, I love you, but don't ever cheat on Dad again. I have a friend with a single aunt who's even more beautiful than Patty.
Story 2.
My wife cheated on me, and it devastated my life, but I found a new path and got the best revenge. I stepped outside, holding a leash, ready to take my dog for a walk and enjoy a short run. As I observed my neighbors starting their cars and heading to work, I let out a deep sigh, realizing I had no office or workplace to rush to anymore. Following my business's bankruptcy, I was stuck with a huge pile of debt, and I'd be spending another day at home trying to revive my once thriving business, which had met with nothing but failure. The weight of these setbacks left me feeling lost in a world that continued moving forward without me. I noticed my neighbor, James, walking over from his well-maintained driveway. James ran a successful car import business and often had different luxury cars parked outside his house. Today was no exception, and James walked confidently with a big grin. James greeted me cheerfully, almost too cheerful. I responded with a forced smile, even though I noticed his grin seemed to grow wider. I remarked on another day of relaxation for him, though his comments stung. I calmly mentioned that every day brings its own challenges. James just chuckled and said he had cars to import, then strolled away. I watched him go, reminding myself not to let his insensitive remarks affect me. I knew some people couldn't resist the urge to gloat. Returning home used to bring me great comfort, but now it felt like stepping into a storm, not because of the walls or the furniture, but because of someone who lived there, my wife, Nicole. Nicole, who worked as an insurance agent, had grown distant and cold since my financial troubles began. The difference was stark. Gone were the days when she would excitedly call me to come home early for a romantic dinner or snuggle on the couch for a movie. Our conversations, once warm and affectionate, had become brief and mechanical. The home that had once been a sanctuary of love now felt like a reminder of what we had lost. I attempted to bridge the growing gap between us by mentioning the times when Nicole used to check on me during the day. Nicole responded curtly, without looking up from her papers, indicating that things change. One evening, after returning from work, I gathered the courage to approach Nicole, driven by my longing to rekindle the closeness we had once shared. I softly brought up our first anniversary, recalling the candlelight dinner on the terrace and our dance under the stars. Nicole looked up from her laptop with an unreadable expression and inquired about the purpose of my remarks. I confess, I said, I miss us. I miss how things used to be. She audibly sighed, closed her laptop, and explained that she didn't have time for this at the moment, as she was swamped with work. She emphasized that being at home didn't grant her the luxury to sit around and reminisce. I felt a sharp sense of rejection and expressed my desire to spend time together as we used to. Nicole's eyes hardened as she mentioned the times had changed, highlighting her responsibilities while I pursued my activities. She indicated that she didn't have time for sweet talk and suggested that we could discuss things when she wasn't buried with work. I nodded, feeling the weight of the distance between us. All right, Nicole, whenever you're ready. As I walked away, the cold silence of our home felt more pronounced than ever. While walking through the park with my dog, a newfound optimism began to well up within me. Despite the failure of my business, I realized it was just one obstacle in the grand scheme of life. I whispered to myself, patting my dog, "It's just another challenge. I can and will rise again." Upon returning home from the dog walk, I noticed Nicole at the dressing table, gracefully applying lipstick and makeup. Her reflection caught my eyes, evoking memories of the early days of our love. I approached her with a gentle smile and complimented her beauty. Nicole didn't even glance at me. She continued applying her makeup. A moment later, when she was finished, she looked at her own reflection and smiled, remarking, "I am beautiful." In an effort to bridge the gap between us, I casually inquired about her work schedule for the evening. She paused, eyeing me curiously. "Around 7, I think. Why?" I winked and replied, "Oh, no reason, just thought I'd ask." In my heart, I planned a surprise. Tonight, I would prepare a home-cooked dinner, complete with her favorite wine. It was a small gesture, but perhaps it could mark the beginning of healing our bond and regaining her attention. After all, mending our relationship might just be the motivation I needed to rebuild my career. Was this response better or worse? I spent the day refreshing our home, with upbeat music playing in the background. I wanted the atmosphere to radiate warmth and welcome for Nicole's return. With every clean surface, washed dish, and empty trash, I felt a small sense of accomplishment. After making our home shine, I headed to the grocery store to gather ingredients for the evening's dinner. As an afterthought, I decided to visit the wine store to get Nicole's favorite wine. Upon entering, the familiar doorbell chime greeted me, and Pam, the saleswoman, recognized me with excitement. Pam greeted me, saying it had been a while and asking how I'd been. I gave a half smile and replied that I had had better days but was getting by. I inquired if they had a bottle of the rose wine, to which Pam playfully raised her eyebrows and teased about planning a romantic evening at home. I chuckled, attempting to sound nonchalant, and confirmed that it was something like that. I mentioned that Nicole had been there about an hour ago and had picked up a bottle of the same wine. Pam seemed to realize she might have said too much, and she stammered, suggesting that maybe Nicole was planning her own surprise. Clearing her throat, she efficiently wrapped the bottle for me, hoping to change the subject. As I headed home, my hopeful mood was replaced by a swirl of thoughts. I contemplated the possibilities. Could Nicole also be preparing a surprise for me? But why would she buy the wine in the afternoon? I gripped the steering wheel, a mix of anticipation and anxiety taking hold. I decided not to jump to conclusions. One thing was certain, I'd find out soon. Pulling into my driveway, I took a deep breath to calm my racing thoughts and set to work. The aroma of the dinner I'd prepared filled the house, offering a temporary distraction from my swirling thoughts. I glanced at the clock, 7:45. Nicole was usually punctual. Maybe her work held her up, I tried to reassure myself, but a nagging feeling lingered. Sitting in our dimly lit dining room, the table set for 2, I occasionally checked my phone, hoping for a call or a message from Nicole. The house remained quiet, except for the soft ticking of the wall clock. Each passing moment heightened the mystery of Nicole's plans. Finally, around 8:30, my phone rang, and I recognized Nicole's ringtone. I answered quickly. "Hey?" Nicole's voice came through, rushed and slightly breathless. "Hey, babe, where are you?" I asked, masking my concern. "I'm so sorry, Robert," she replied hurriedly. An unexpected business trip came up and I couldn't turn it down. My boss insisted. I tried to digest the news. "Oh, okay, but can't you leave in the morning or something?" "I'm actually already on my way there." She sighed and added, "It's a significant opportunity, could open some doors for me." I took a deep breath. I wanted to be understanding, especially considering my recent setbacks. "I understand. I wish you had told me sooner, though." I know, Nicole replied, the rush in her voice evident. "Everything happened so fast. I really have to go, Robert." I looked at the beautifully set table and the dinner I'd prepared. "All right, take care, Nicole. Call me when you can." Nicole's voice softened. Okay, I will. I'll be back soon. Bye. And by the way, I don't know how long it's going to last, maybe like 2 weeks or so. As the call ended, I sank into a chair, my shoulders slumping under the weight of the evening's turn of events. I struggled to piece together the puzzle of my thoughts. The unexpected business trip seemed plausible, but the earlier wine purchase kept bothering me. Maybe she simply wanted to unwind during her trip and didn't mention it. I tried to rationalize, attempting to push aside the cloud of doubt forming in my mind. I took a deep breath, urging myself to focus on the present. Right in front of me was a delicious meal, and I was reluctant to let it go to waste. With renewed determination, I served myself some food and moved to the living room. The soft glow of the TV filled the room as I switched it on. The familiar sounds of a game in progress greeted me. I decided to immerse myself in it, temporarily pushing aside my concerns, or sometimes a little. Distraction was all I needed to find clarity. I relaxed on the couch, thoroughly enjoying the game's excitement. An occasional chuckle escaped my lips, indicating my genuine amusement. When my glass ran dry, I strolled to the kitchen for a refill. The evening's anxieties began to fade, replaced by a warmer, lighter feeling. As I passed the study, an unexpected light caught my eye. The computer screen was illuminated, something that typically happened when notifications came in or if it was disturbed. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped into the study, switching on the overhead light. I mused to myself that maybe someone had left the computer on after having one too many drinks, but just as I was about to leave, another noise from the computer halted me in my tracks. A small pop-up in the screen's lower corner grabbed my attention, displaying the message. Photos successfully synced. With raised eyebrows, I approached the computer and clicked on the notification. The screen showed the loading icon for a moment before revealing a list of files, all time-stamped from just hours ago. Tentatively, I opened one of the files, and the image started loading from top to bottom, gradually revealing a familiar face. As the image continued to load, Nicole's smiling face appeared, and her surroundings became clearer. By the time the image fully rendered, my heart sank. There she was, my wife, playfully taking a selfie while sitting on her boss's lap. The realization weighed heavily on me, and I slumped into a nearby chair, holding my head in my hands. All the doubts and suspicions that I had pushed aside came rushing back, now confirmed by the undeniable truth on the screen. The room seemed to close in on me as I stared at the image, the playful glint in Nicole's eyes, the familiarity with which she leaned into her boss. It all painted a story that I didn't want to believe. The wine I had consumed churned uneasily in my stomach. I returned to the list of files, clicking on another one. A sequence of photos revealed Nicole and her boss at a fancy bar. In some pictures, they were laughing and toasting with their glasses. In others, they were engaged in deep conversation, their faces close together. With each image, the reality of the situation became more evident. The evening's attempts to rekindle our relationship, the dinner I had prepared with care, it all seemed to taunt me now. A confusing mix of anger, pain, and betrayal flooded me, and most of all, I felt an overpowering sense of loss. I got up and returned to the living room, no longer interested in the wine I held. I was now looking for something stronger. With a light drizzle outside, I put on my coat and headed out slowly. I made my way to the liquor store. As I walked, my heart ached with pain. I could feel myself shattering into numerous pieces. Memories of the joyful times I shared with Nicole replayed in my mind, but now they were tinged with sadness. The question, why, echoed repeatedly. Why did Nicole grow distant? Was it because I had failed as a provider? I remembered the times when my business was thriving, when we both had big dreams. I had once enthusiastically promised Nicole the latest Mercedes, a symbol of success and luxury. But I never followed through on that promise. Could that unkempt promise be a part of why she distanced herself, or was it something more? It was hard to pinpoint one reason. Perhaps it was a combination of many small things, overlooked moments, and unspoken emotions. All I knew for certain was that our relationship had changed, leaving me with a profound sense of loss and confusion. I entered the store, rainwater dripping from my face and soaking my coat. Pam, upon recognizing me, noticed the fading smile on my face and paused for a moment, searching for the right words. "Hey, Robert," she began gently. "Having a tough day?" My voice was low, almost a whisper. "Whiskey, please." Pam, perceptive as always, sensed that something was amiss. "Are you sure about that? If you need someone to talk to." But I simply shook my head, interrupting her. "Just the whiskey, thanks." I took the bottle, offered a brief wary smile, and left the store. I didn't wait until I got home to open the whiskey. After a few swallows, the world began to spin. The drink heightened my emotions, breaking down my usual defenses. Stumbling a bit, I began speaking louder to strangers passing by. "Hey there," I slurred, pointing at no one in particular. "Do you know my wife? She's off somewhere, having the time of her life with her boss, And here I am, celebrating. I laughed bitterly, my words dripping with sarcasm. Yep, a one-man party, that's me. As time passed, my speech became increasingly incoherent. I began to sing fragments of a song that had played in my home earlier, the same song meant to accompany a romantic dinner for two. My voice wavered, sometimes staying on key, other times going entirely off tune. The sadness in my rendition was palpable, the melody mirroring my broken heart. Stumbling along the sidewalk, I realized I had lost my whiskey bottle. Thinking I had finished it, I decided to return to the store for another. As I swayed and muttered to myself, I reached into my pocket for money, but it was nowhere to be found. It was then that I noticed an older man nearby, watching me with a mix of concern and curiosity. I raised my voice and my words slurred together as I confronted the old man, asking if he had something to say. The elderly man, wearing glasses and carrying a worn-out backpack, appeared surprised by my aggression at first. However, my tone quickly shifted from confrontational to desperate. I apologized to him, my voice breaking, and explained that I really needed a drink right now. I asked if he could spare $120. The old man sighed and reached into his pockets, pulling out a few crumpled dollar bills from his shirt pocket. He told me it was all he had and extended the money. To me, still steady on my feet, I accepted the money and mumbled my thanks. Then I suggested that he join me for a drink, but the old man gently declined, expressing concern that I had already had enough. I was about to respond defiantly when my stomach turned, and I vomited onto the pavement. The mist had soaked everything around, and the cold was settling in. Wet and disoriented, I leaned against a brick wall with my eyes closed, trying to catch my breath. The old man observed with a furrowed brow, expressing worry. He prodded gently, asking if I lived nearby. In my hardly coherent state, I simply murmured that I wanted to sleep. Surveying the nearly deserted street, with the dim light from a nearby lamppost casting long shadows on the wet pavement, the old man expressed concern that it wasn't a suitable place to sleep, especially in such weather conditions. He mustered his strength and helped me to my feet, taking most of my weight. Encouraging me, the old man led me toward a nearby bridge. Below the bridge, hidden from the rain and prying eyes, was a small makeshift shelter that served as the old man's temporary home. It was constructed from discarded materials and tarps, offering limited comfort, but at least it was dry and relatively warm. I stirred awake, the soft chirping of morning birds filling my ears. My surroundings seemed unfamiliar, a murky haze blurring my vision. My skull throbbed with pain from the previous night's excesses. I winced as I tried to make sense of where I was. The dim light revealed a simple wooden shelter. With a groan, I pushed back the curtain and stepped outside, attempting to orient myself. Next to a gentle river, an elderly man sat calmly, casting his fishing line. His posture remained relaxed, and his hands displayed steadiness despite the evident marks of time on his skin. Cautiously approaching the man, I greeted him with a questioning look. He responded with a knowing smile and remarked that it took me a while to wake up and that we had a bit too much fun the previous night. Momentarily taken aback by the man's warmth, I stammered, expressing my lack of memory regarding how I ended up there. The man, named Jim Hughes, chuckled and explained that I had consumed too much alcohol the night before, leading to me passing out on the pavement. He mentioned that it didn't feel right to leave me there, so he brought me to this place. My cheeks reddened with embarrassment, and I thanked Jim while expressing my hope that I hadn't caused any trouble. Jim leaned back, and the sun reflected off his aged eyes as he admitted that I had been a bit loud, particularly in my shouts about my wife. Feeling the weight of the previous night's events, I apologized and explained that I'd been going through a tough time lately. Jim's gaze softened, and he offered comforting words, mentioning that he had been in a similar situation, experiencing grief and feeling lost. He shared some wisdom, stating that pain has its own way of healing and that time can help. Jim suggested having breakfast for the moment. Without hesitation, I blurted out a request for something to drink, citing the splitting headache I was experiencing. Jim chuckled, showing he'd already anticipated this, and soon the delightful aroma of simmering fish soup filled the air. I watched as Jim skillfully prepared the meal, and I couldn't help but express how heavenly it smelled. Jim replied with a wink, attributing it to an old family recipe, perfect for mornings like these. As we enjoyed the warmth and flavor of the fish soup under the open sky, Jim took a moment to offer me some advice. I sighed and expressed my understanding of the need to avoid letting alcohol control one's life. Jim looked at me, his gaze pausing for a moment, and shared his perspective, mentioning that life is complex, and that sometimes it's best to let go and move on, particularly if someone has wronged you. I sensed a touch of sadness in his eyes but refrained from delving further into the subject. Instead, I thanked Jim for everything and mentioned my intention to head home, As I prepared to leave, I noticed some intricately carved wooden figures and objects outside the shack. Impressed, I asked if Jim had made them. Jim's eyes sparkled as he confirmed that he had crafted them, explaining that they were a piece of his past life that he still held on to and that woodworking brought him peace. I expressed my admiration, complimenting his talent. A smile blossomed on my face as I continued my journey home, hinting at newfound hope and a fresh start. Upon arriving home, I rushed to my computer and became determined to reach out to local furniture stores in the following days, pitching my ideas with enthusiasm. 1 week later, filled with hope and determination, I retraced my steps to Jim's riverside shack. I expected to find the elderly man there, but only Jim's backpack and jacket lay near the dwelling, as if he had just stepped away. Confusion clouded my thoughts. Where could Jim be? I scanned the surroundings, but the old man was nowhere in sight. Maybe he's out fishing or gathering wood, I thought, considering coming back the next day. As I started my journey back, a small, sharp stone found its way into my shoe. Each step grew increasingly uncomfortable, like an incessant itch I couldn't scratch. I let out a sigh of irritation and found a flat spot to sit down, eager to remove the annoying intruder. However, as I lifted my shoe, my eyes darted past it to a lone figure standing perilously close to the edge of the bridge in the distance. Panic gripped me. The scene looked all too familiar. Without a second thought, I quickly put my shoe back on, not even bothering to tie the laces. I shouted with desperation as I saw the person too close to the edge of the bridge, fearing the worst. I hoped that with each rapid step I could reach them in time, praying they would hear me and step back to safety. My feet thudded against the wooden planks of the bridge, and as I got closer, Jim's figure became clearer. Initially relieved to find my friend, my smile disappeared when I noticed a coiled rope on the ground next to Jim, replacing my relief with gut-wrenching fear. Jim's eyes, filled with pain and unshed tears, met mine, conveying the despair that words couldn't express. Without hesitation, I approached Jim with slow and deliberate movements, careful not to startle him. I reached out and put an arm securely around his shoulders. We stood there together, two souls on that bridge, sharing a moment of raw vulnerability. I tightened my grip, feeling Jim's body tremble as his tears finally flowed. I pulled him into a tight embrace, the weight of the moment pressing down on us both. "It's okay," I murmured softly into Jim's ear, my voice steady and reassuring. "I'm here. We'll face this together." Sitting side by side on the bridge, Jim slowly began to share his story with me, unraveling the threads of his life step by step. He began by mentioning his service to the country and his job at a food processing plant, emphasizing that it may not have been glamorous, but it was honest labor. Jim's voice carried a weary tone as he recounted his journey, mentioning that he had secured a small apartment and had done everything he could to provide for his daughter, who meant the world to him. The weight of his memories was palpable as he rubbed his forehead. He continued, explaining that he lost his job when the plant downsized and missed a rent payment, leading to his eviction just a week later. Jim expressed how he had felt like he had nothing and no safety net, with pain etched in his eyes. Jim continued his story, describing how it had felt like every door was closing on him. He mentioned returning to his hometown with the hope of better luck but faced difficulties due to his lack of a permanent address. Even job interviews ended in rejection because of his history of job loss. Jim looked down and fidgeted with his hands, conveying his anguish as he recounted how he was picked up for sleeping in places he shouldn't have been and fell seriously ill. He shared the scarcity of assistance and how he eventually found refuge in a friend's van, which was temporary. He mentioned stumbling upon the shack by the bridge, which had become his makeshift home. He let out a heavy sigh, expressing that the most painful part had been knowing his daughter was out there, thinking her father had abandoned her. Jim had been deeply despondent, feeling lost and without any hope for a brighter future. He had reached the bridge in a state of despair. My heart unexpectedly went out to Jim, this elderly man with his gentle demeanor and genuine smile. He stirred a protective instinct within me. As we walked back to the shack together, I spoke with genuine warmth, telling Jim that life had thrown some hard punches his way, but he was not alone in this battle anymore. Jim's eyes glistened with a mix of gratitude and astonishment. My mind raced with possibilities. I had a vision, and Jim possessed the skills. So I proposed to Jim the idea of partnering with me in starting a small furniture business, possibly beginning with crafting cradles. Jim looked taken aback by the unexpected proposal, but slowly a glimmer of hope began to shine in his eyes, a light that had been missing for a long time. He asked hesitantly if I would trust him with that endeavor, to which I replied confidently that I wouldn't have offered if I didn't. Over the following 2 weeks, the garage at my house echoed with the sounds of sawing, hammering, and laughter as we skillfully crafted exquisite wooden cradles. Each piece carried a story of hope and fresh beginnings. Jim became more than just a guest in my home. We shared meals, stories, and dreams, becoming like family with each passing day. I loaded the beautifully crafted wooden cradles into my truck and headed to the local furniture stores. The cradles immediately caught the attention of store owners with their intricate designs and expert craftsmanship. When one store owner inquired about the craftsman, I proudly told them about my friend Jim, emphasizing his remarkable talent. It didn't take long for the cradles to gain popularity. Customers appreciated their uniqueness and the exceptional craftsmanship that went into each piece. Word spread, and soon more and more stores were reaching out to me and Jim with orders. One day, my smartphone displayed my wife Nicole's name, filling me with anticipation and memories. In a brief conversation, Nicole mentioned a delay and the possibility of an extended trip abroad. When I inquired about what was going on, there was a moment of silence, followed by Nicole clearing her throat. She then explained her urgent need for a loan. Hesitating due to our history and the abruptness of her request, I eventually conveyed my inability. "Nicole, I'm sorry, but I can't do that right now." Her irritation was audible, and she sighed and responded sharply with a "Fine, forget it," before abruptly ending the call. Jim and my collaboration had taken off, and the demand for our finely crafted cradles was on the rise. Our small workspace was quickly becoming inadequate to handle the expanding business. As time passed, it became evident that we needed more space to accommodate our growing enterprise. I recalled a conversation with my friend Mark, who mentioned owning an old barn just outside of town. It was spacious, sturdy, and had been vacant for years. The transition to the barn went smoothly, and we hired a couple of eager local workers who were enthusiastic about learning the craft and becoming part of our growing success. I began to oversee operations more frequently from my home office. One evening, after a long day at the barn, Jim returned home to a pleasant surprise. Upon entering the house, he found me bustling around in the kitchen, which was an unusual sight. Typically, we would share a simple dinner with the rest of the crew back at the barn before calling it a day. However, this evening was different. The table was neatly set, and a delicious aroma filled the air. Seeing Jim standing there, somewhat perplexed, I motioned for him to take a seat at the table. "Please, sit down, Jim. Dinner will be ready shortly," I said with a friendly smile. Jim, though confused, complied and took a seat, observing me as I moved about the kitchen with determination. Eventually, I joined him at the table, removing my apron. My face lit up with a wide grin, piquing Jim's curiosity. "I hope you won't be upset, Jim," I began, my eyes gleaming with an indescribable emotion. Before Jim could inquire further, the doorbell rang. I quickly answered it, and a moment later a young girl hesitantly entered the room, her eyes filled with curiosity as she took in the unfamiliar surroundings. A woman followed closely behind. Jim's face shifted from pale to flushed with emotion as he recognized his daughter, Mindy. He rose from his seat, stumbling slightly as he rushed towards her. They embraced tightly, their emotions needing no words to convey their feelings. Behind them, I stood with the young girl, Kristen, smiling warmly at the heartwarming reunion. Mindy's voice quivered as she spoke amidst tears, expressing, "I thought I'd never see you again, Dad." Jim choked out with a trembling voice, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I should have reached out." In a soft tone, Mindy said, "You should have, Dad. But it's okay now," as she stroked her father's hair. Jim nodded, clinging to his daughter as if she would vanish if he let go. He then looked at Kristen and then at Mindy, slightly confused. Mindy laughed and informed him, "That's Kristen." Jim gazed at his granddaughter, a lovely little girl he had only seen as an infant in pictures. I clapped my hands gently, drawing their attention, and informed them, "Well, everyone, dinner is ready. Please, come to the table." As they gathered around the table, Mindy shared her struggles of the past month. Her obsession with finding her father had strained her relationship with her husband, ultimately leading to their separation. It had been a challenging journey, but at that moment, with her father by her side and new friends around, Mindy felt a sense of peace and closure she hadn't experienced in a long time. The warmth and laughter in my home multiplied with Mindy and Kristen's presence. They added a delightful energy that I recognized was healing for me. I invited them to stay, knowing how much it would help my friend rebuild the lost bond. One evening, while engrossed in paperwork in my home office, the main door squeaked open. It wasn't Jim or Mindy, and I knew this because they always announced their return cheerfully. Glancing out, I saw Nicole. She appeared weary, with slumped shoulders and dark circles under her eyes. She sighed, dropped her bags, and stretched. That trip was quite an experience. I watched her. Silently, a furrow forming on my forehead. She walked past me and slumped on the living room sofa, every move reflecting her exhaustion. Taking a deep breath, I approached her. I hesitated for a moment before sitting beside her, maintaining a bit of distance. Nicole glanced at me, trying to gauge my feelings. "Look, Robert, I know things have been complicated, but..." I raised a hand, interrupting her. "Did you have your phone sync turned on?" I asked, my voice low. Nicole looked puzzled. But realization soon crossed her face, her eyes widening in shock. I swallowed hard, holding back my emotions. I saw the pictures, Nicole. I didn't need to see more than a few to understand. She moved closer, desperation in her eyes. Robert, please listen. It's not how it seems. We were just... I stood up abruptly, cutting her off. I wish I hadn't seen those photos, Nicole, but now that I have, things can never be the same. I can't. I won't pretend everything's okay. Nicole's voice trembled as she pleaded. Robert, just give me a chance to explain. I shook my head. I think it's best if you leave, please. Nicole's tone escalated, her frustration evident. So, this is it? You won't even hear me out? Fine, leave. But just remember, no one will ever stand by you the way I did. No one will love you like I did. The sound of the front door creaking open interrupted the tension in the room. Jim, having just entered, froze, realizing the gravity of the situation. He decided to give them some privacy and quietly retreated, gently closing the door behind him. Nicole's demeanor shifted as her attempts to assert herself failed. She appeared genuinely remorseful. Robert, I'm truly sorry, she whispered. While I acknowledged her apology, I firmly requested that she leave. As Nicole exited, a cheerful Kristen was playing on the lawn. She spied me and rushed over, hugging my legs tightly. The innocent embrace seemed to emphasize the contrast between the past and a potential future. Nicole watched, taking in the scene. A pang of realization struck her. Perhaps someone else would indeed offer me the love and respect I deserved, something she had been unable to provide.
Story 3.
Wife had an affair with her best friend's husband, faces legal action from her lawyer friend. I am 33, male, married to Summer, 2008, female, for 4 years before she did something unspeakable. Summer and I met when I had freshly graduated from college. We both attended the same career training program, and from there, we fell in love. I didn't express our love at the beginning of our friendship. It took me a while to express my feelings to her. The truth is, I took my time because I didn't want to be deceived by her beautiful smiles and all. I had recently come out of a toxic relationship and didn't want to jump back into another one. Eventually, we became close and we both admitted to being attracted to each other. We started dating soon after that. After dating for 2 years, we married and moved into a bigger apartment. I'd say that living with Summer and getting to know her every day was fun. Personality-wise, I liked that she always had something up her sleeve. As newly married couples, we were obsessed with each other and did everything together. We ate, shopped, had our baths, and even prayed together. I had read somewhere that spending time with your lover or spouse helped strengthen the bond. That's precisely what I did with Summer. Before we got married, Summer and I decided not to have kids until we were ready so that we could enjoy each other's company without any distractions. While Summer worked as a secretary in a big tech firm, I worked as a construction worker. Our earnings were enough to sustain our simple yet sophisticated life, and we kept working hard, believing that we would transition into better careers in the future. Between the two of us, Summer was the more social one, and she could make friends with anybody she wanted to. I was the polar opposite of her. I barely made friends and was only close to my older brother. Summer had a best friend, Claire, 20, female, and they had been friends since their early school days. On my end, I stuck to being close to my brother because it was difficult for me to open up to new people. I had few friends, but no one was that close to being called a best friend. Summer and her best friend were so close that if one didn't know better, one could mistake them as sisters. They were both blonde, had the same eye color, and acted similarly. Claire was like a family member to us, and we visited each other's places frequently. Claire was a lawyer, and her husband had his own business. Occasionally, we would arrange outings as a family unit and always hang out at least twice a month. Being an introvert, I tried my best to build a strong relationship with Claire's husband, but no matter how hard I tried, it didn't go smoothly. Our conversations felt forced, and everything else we did felt forced too. Despite feeling this way, I never complained when Summer and Claire fixed an outing or planned for us to go on a vacation as a family unit. I understood that. Summer was only trying to make us have fun and not get overwhelmed with work. I also tried to use those opportunities to get rid of my introvertedness. This is to say that Claire's husband was no stranger to me at all. Summer was also very close to him, and since they had known each other for at least 2 years before I came into the picture, I didn't suspect anything fishy was going on between them until Claire asked to meet one day in a cafe. When I met Claire that day, she looked worried, and the first thing she said to me was, "I think my husband is cheating on me." Initially, I was confused because her husband did not seem like the kind of man that would cheat on her. He loved her so much and literally adored the ground she walked on. Anytime I went out for dinner, a picnic, or went over to have dinner at their place, her husband always treated Claire like she was the only woman on earth. It even got to a point where Summer began to compare me to Claire's husband every time we returned from our team hangouts. She always had a way of pointing out the things Claire's husband did for Claire and the things I didn't do for her. She complained over and over until it got on my nerves. It felt like Summer was jealous of her best friend and how her husband treated her, but she never admitted it. The thing is, Claire's husband inherited a big landscaping business from his father, so even without working so hard, he had the money rolling in for him. And he could afford to buy Claire fancy things and other expensive lady stuff. And each time Claire received something fancy from her husband, she would call and tell Summer excitedly, and the two would talk about it. But immediately after Summer got off the call, she would say nasty things about Claire and how she didn't deserve to get 2 expensive bracelets in 3 months. I never mentioned this to Claire or her husband because I felt it was a best friend's thing to want to have what her best friend has. So when Claire told me she suspected her husband was cheating on her, it shocked me. I didn't try to vouch for him because I knew it would be foolish. Then, just as I was trying to look at things from her angle, it dawned on me that she was supposed to be conversing with Summer, not me. When I asked Claire why she was talking to me instead of Summer, she gave me a response that made my throat dry up. Claire told me that she suspected her husband was having an affair with Summer, her best friend, and my wife. I didn't know what to say, but I told her it wasn't possible that Summer would be having an affair with her best friend's husband. On my end, I was a good husband to her, and I showered her with enough love and attention. I know I did not gift her as much as Claire's husband had gifted Claire, but I tried my best to give her gifts on her birthdays or any occasion we celebrated, even though I doubted that Summer could stoop so low as to cheat on me with her best friend's husband. A part of me believed it was true. I almost zoned out retrospecting Summer's behavior over the last few months. I realized that Summer had indeed been acting differently. She no longer had time for me like she used to, and she had this unexplainable glow and excitement every time she was about to step out. Summer also became so cold, and we would stay in the same room and it would feel like she wasn't there. Our conversations felt forced, and her bumbling sense of humor was gone even when I tried to crack jokes. I took it as a phase that would pass eventually, but I was wrong. Aside from that, Summer recently renovated her wardrobe and got more tight and exposing clothes. She wore them to work and any time she wanted to go out. They made her look like a teenager in heat. I wasn't the kind of person who objected to my wife's clothing choices, so I never said anything. All this while, I didn't know that Summer started wearing those teeny tiny dresses to seduce her best friend's husband. So after Claire told me about her suspicions, we decided we would investigate on our own before concluding anything. After returning home, I waited for Summer to sleep so that I could go through her phone. She was clean as a weasel. I think he meant to say a whistle, but weasel is probably more accurate. I checked all her social media accounts to see if she had been communicating with Claire's husband there, but I couldn't find anything. I searched for a week and even went through her work laptop, but there was nothing. At one point, I even felt bad that I was trying to find something that had the possibility of not existing. But when I saw how distant we had become in the space of weeks, I was sure she was seeing someone, even if it wasn't Claire's husband. On the other hand, I didn't know that Claire had hired a private investigator to follow her husband around. After what seemed like a week and some days of the PI following him around, Claire turned out to be correct. Summer was having an affair with Claire's husband. After we saw all the pictures and videos of them hanging out together, kissing each other, and doing the other things cheaters do, we were so heartbroken. I don't even know who was the most heartbroken between us. Maybe it was Claire because it wasn't easy to find out that the two people she trusted in her life could betray her like that. As for me, I wasn't just heartbroken, I was mad. It was painful to know that all my sacrifices were just about to go down the drain because of a wife with no contentment. She always had her eyes out for everything Claire's husband was doing for Claire, and in the end, she betrayed her best friend and destroyed 2 marriages. After Claire sent all the evidence to me, I tried as much as possible to stay calm. That first day, I didn't sleep at home because I feared what I could do to Summer. I had to go and meet Claire because she was the only one who could relate to my pain. After comforting each other, I dropped her at her house and went to look for a motel to pass the night. Funnily enough, I still couldn't sleep because I was deeply hurt. The thoughts of Claire's husband doing it with my wife kept running through my head. Around the same time, I began to put the pieces together and understood why our intimacy life just disappeared. The following morning was a weekend, so I went home. Summer was at home, unbothered that I slept out of the house. Merely looking at her made me angry, and I tried so much to control my emotions, but I couldn't. I had to confront her about it. When I told her I was hearing rumors about her and Claire's husband, she froze and asked me to find out. Look, I expected that she would deny it, and she did not disappoint. She told me that it was insane of me to believe that she could betray her best friend and cheat on me. She looked so convincing that I would have believed her if I didn't have the evidence the private investigator gathered. So after laughing at her ignorance, I brought up my phone and showed her all the pictures and videos Claire had sent me. When Summer saw them, she flipped immediately and said that someone was trying to frame her up and the video and pictures weren't what I thought. I told her that the videos were from her best friend Claire, so they could not have been forged. I had barely finished what I was saying when Summer started yelling at the top of her voice. She said that Claire was trying to destroy our marriage and that she always knew Claire was always jealous of her. To be honest, that was the last thing I expected to hear from her. She was such a great actress, and before I could say another word, she took her car key and stormed out of the house in anger. I wasn't bothered when she left because I knew she would come home to me, but I didn't know Summer had gone to confront Claire. I was at home looking at the evidence when I got a call from Claire that Summer had come to her house and physically assaulted her. She even broke a couple of things at her home, and they were no longer friends. It felt like a joke because I didn't expect Summer to go and confront Claire even after she had been caught red-handed. It didn't make sense to me. Shortly after Summer was done at Claire's house, she came home looking all peaceful like nothing had just happened. When I asked her why she had gone to assault her best friend, her response was, "Because I have been wanting to put her in her place for a very long time." Her response said it all, and at that moment, I knew I had been blinded by love the whole time. It was evident that Summer never loved Claire. She made it look like she had been bitter about her friend's progress and had been pretending the whole time. When I went to see Claire at the hospital later that evening, I was shocked at the extent of what Summer had done to her best friend of so many years. Between the two of them, Summer was the wilder, and Claire was mainly peaceful. She was unique in her own way, and I guess that was what Summer envied. I had a gut feeling that it wasn't just about her husband. Summer must have felt threatened by Claire's success and life of ease, so she wanted to take away the one thing that mattered to her. It turned out that Summer didn't only hurt Claire physically, she also hurt her emotionally and said things that best friends shouldn't say to each other. Summer had vented out in front of Claire and her husband, how Claire always acted like the better one between them, and that she was tired of seeing Claire live the life she wanted. She even went as far as saying that she was tired of Claire rubbing all of her success and gifts in her face, and she hated Claire for always making her feel like she was nothing. Claire said she was shocked when Summer said all those things. She didn't know Summer felt that way about her all those years. With that, I knew Summer was a lost cause, and if she could betray her best friend like that, she could do anything to me. She was capable of cold-blooded murder, and that wasn't the kind of woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, never. Funnily enough, after her relationship with Claire's husband was exposed, she tried to come back to me. Although I have told her I'm seeing a divorce lawyer, I haven't served the papers yet. She thinks that there's still a chance. Her attitude changed, and she stopped going out like before. Now she's been trying to do things she stopped doing. She tries to seduce me and cook for me, but I can see through her pretense. I've been eating out since I found out, and I won't stop until Summer is out of my house. After Claire and I found out about Summer's betrayal, Claire begged that I control my emotions and continue with Summer so she could think our marriage was still intact. Now the thing is, looking at her disgusts me. I cannot let her touch me because my mind is no longer with her. But despite everything she has done, a part of me still loves and yearns for her. What do? If we fix things in the future, she will still cheat on me. We've only been married for 4 years and she's already cheating. At the same time, I just wish I could kick her out of my house and throw her things on the lawn so the neighbors can know how much of a loose woman she is. Meanwhile, Claire officially divorced her husband last week, and Summer has been low-key insinuating that Claire was not good enough for her husband. She still thinks I bought her lies about Claire framing her. She believes our marriage will continue as before, but she's mistaken. Anyways, it's all for the best. Claire's been cooking something for Summer, and I can't wait to see her face when it happens. Most importantly, I can't wait to throw her cheating butt out of my house. Why on earth would you stay in the same house as her and not leave, or at least have her leave? I'm not sure there isn't any fixing things. She cheated on you because she thinks you're not good enough for her, but somehow she's good enough for Claire's husband. What a wicked game of jealousy. She couldn't stand someone else being genuinely happy and successful, so she had to ruin it for poor Claire. It's disgusting to think of what she's actually capable of. While her mind is clouded with envy, sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and Summer's about to find that a storm is rolling in. Update 1. Hello everyone, thank you for your comments. While waiting for Claire's signal, I shifted to a hotel because I could not bear Summer's face. I felt disgusted looking at her. Meanwhile, Claire has recovered fully from her injuries she sustained from Summer's assault, and she has dragged Summer to court. She sued Summer for alimony and for physically assaulting her. When Summer got served, she stormed into my workplace because she wasn't aware of my hotel. She said Claire had no right to sue her for alimony and she wouldn't give her a dime. She even said Claire started the fight between them, so she did everything she could to defend herself. I knew that was a lie because when she returned from Claire's house that day, she said something about putting Claire in her place, which did not seem like a defense. I told her that it was not my problem anymore. She has dug the road for herself, and now she herself has to travel alone. Long story short, Claire had the upper hand in court, and the court ruled in her favor. The court ordered Summer to pay up the alimony, and she was fined extra for assaulting Claire in her own home. Although I wasn't present for the live action, Claire kept me updated. That day I went back home to complete the task I had been longing for. As soon as Summer saw me, she started playing the victim, and I left her alone to deal with all this mess. She had the nerve to say I was the worst husband because I didn't support her. She said I should have sided with her to attack Claire together. When she stopped talking, I told her that husbands were meant to support loyal and faithful wives and not a cheating one like her. The annoying thing was she still acted innocent and asked what I meant by that. Seeing that stupid innocent look on her face even angered me more, and I began to yell at her. I told her I knew she was sleeping with her best friend's husband, but I had to pretend like I didn't, so in the end she would experience what it felt like to have her hopes shattered. As I spoke, I pulled out the divorce papers and asked her to sign them. When she saw them, she fell on her knees and began to beg me. She said she had lost everything and could not afford to lose me. I told her it was already too late, and I began to throw her things out on the front lawn just as I had imagined. I was so surprised to see Summer cry and run after me in a house like that. I didn't. No, she had it in her. I ended up throwing her out, and I made sure I removed all of her property and littered them on the lawn. All of this happened last week, and since then she hasn't stopped calling me, sending me numerous voicemails and multiple messages a day on all of our mutual social media platforms. She even went as far as calling my older brother to talk to me on her behalf, but I asked him to block her and he did. I will make another update as soon as she signs the divorce papers. Looks like Summer is experiencing a drought. She should have been grateful for what she had in her own life. I'm shocked she thought you would stay with her and put up with her BS. Maybe you're right about not having too many best friends. Quality over quantity, I guess. Update 2. Hello everyone, I'm glad to see your comments. For those asking if I felt fulfilled when I threw Summer out of the house, yes I did. It was as if a burden had been lifted off my shoulders, and I wish I could do it repeatedly. I kicked Summer out of the house last month. The last time she came to my house, she met Claire there with me, and I was so angry. I know the last person she expected to see was Claire, and it wasn't a beautiful sight for her to behold. She was also shocked that Claire and I had become great companions while she lived out there in pain and misery. I even have a story. Summer tried to return to her mother's house after I kicked her out of my house, But when her mother heard that she had betrayed her best friend and cheated on me, she disowned her and kicked her out of the house. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't glad. When Summer met Claire at my house, I loved the look of defeat on her face when Claire answered the door. We didn't even let her into the house because she was negative energy. Maybe if I didn't step in on time, she would have assaulted Claire on my property. But I yelled at her and told her that if she showed up at my house again, I'd arrest her. Well, she didn't leave immediately. She still stayed and created a scene, saying I had been cheating on her with Claire. When Claire heard that, she started yelling at her in anger. She told Summer she wasn't a backstabbing witch like her and she would never take her best friend's husband. We thought that after exchanging words and all, Summer would go away in shame. But despite everything Claire and I said to her that day, she still stood on the porch and fought back with her words. She was even like a child with multiple personalities. One minute she would cry and beg me to take her back, and the next minute she would be all defensive. It got to a point that she was disturbing the neighbors' peace, and neighbors began to come out. At that point, I was forced to call the police on her, and she was arrested. I'm so happy to announce that Summer and I are divorced. As for Summer, she's out of my life for good. She lost it all. She lost her husband, her best friend, money, and even her mother. Worst of all, Claire's husband dumped Summer after their affair was brought to light. I'm sure she's somewhere sulking in regrets. Whatever she got was well-deserved. I'm glad I belong to such a fantastic community. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and advice. I do not take this community for granted. The best woman won. Turns out Summer was right. Claire deserves someone so much better, and I'm glad she found that with you. Claire is half the woman Summer wished she could be. Good on you, OP. She never deserved you. Looks like you got the last laugh. Wishing you all the best. What do you make of this? Do you have a similar story? We want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time.
Story 4.
I stumbled onto the patio, armed with a club. Those pesky dogs were rummaging through my trash again, knocking over the dumpster and waking me up. It was the third time this week, and I'd had enough. Why couldn't people keep their dogs at home? Though I knew they were just hungry, my annoyance lingered. Quietly unlatching the back gate, I approached the trash bins to confront them. Two figures stood beside the toppled container as I swung the gate open. They spotted me, pleading for mercy, explaining they were just hungry kids. Surprised, I brought them into the backyard under the security lights. They were ragged and dirty, dressed in oversized clothes and baseball caps, shivering in the chilly air. Demanding if they had tipped over my trash, one confessed, promising they wouldn't do it again. Not satisfied, I led them inside, directing them to the bathroom and instructing them not to come out until I said so. Gathering some clean clothes and towels, I returned to find them attempting to escape through the window. Surprised to realize they were girls, I urged them into the shower, providing soap and shampoo. After a brief exchange, I left them to clean up and headed to the kitchen. Sorting through the fridge, I prepared plates of cold fried chicken, potato salad, veggies with sauce, pastrami sandwiches, pickles, and chips, setting the table for their meal. Would make for a pretty good dinner, I mused. I hoped they'd enjoy the Munster cheese, mayo, and mustard on their sandwiches. The bathroom door opened quietly, and a whisper drifted to the kitchen. A minute later, two of the most stunning girls I'd ever seen entered. With long, dark black hair, olive skin, and the greenest eyes, slightly almond-shaped, high cheekbones, and the cutest little noses, they were a sight to behold. They seemed to be in their teens, maybe 11 or 12. It was amusing to see them in Brianna's clothes. She's tall, and they were tiny. With sleeves and trouser legs rolled up, they resembled tramps. "Take a seat," I offered. "Want cola, juice, or milk?" They both opted for milk. "I'm McKay North," I introduced myself, pouring milk. "Who are you?" "I'm Maggie," said the taller one. "Short for Margaret. This is Stokely." "Can we really finish it all?" "Have more if you want," I said. "I'll cook in the morning, but not at 2 a.m. "No, that's fine. Thanks," Stokely replied. Maggie eyed me suspiciously. "What do you want from us? We're not up to anything." I chuckled. "Same here. If you're after my virtue, you'll be disappointed." They didn't quite grasp my humor. "I'm not interested in little girls," I clarified. They weren't fans of the label, but they started eating voraciously. "Slow down," I advised. "Chickens. No need to bolt. The chickens are dead and the potatoes were never fast runners. You'll get a stomachache. They chuckled, eating more moderately. Where do you live? There's an empty house down the block, Maggie explained. We found a mattress and something to cover up with, but we're worried about hopheads moving in once they realize it's vacant. Want a warm bed tonight? I offered. They eyed me skeptically. Not mine, I clarified. I've got 3 spare bedrooms. Well, technically mine too, but you get the idea. They chuckled nervously. We've got no money, Stokely admitted. We can't pay. I'm not asking for payment, I reassured. Why are you doing this? She queried. Why be so kind, Mac? Call me Mac, I corrected. Everyone does. I'm just a good guy, not trying to be cute, I explained. Ask my mom. This brought smiles. I liked it. I decided to make it a regular thing. I'd want someone to be kind to me if I were in your shoes, I mentioned. They seemed to mull it over. Can I snag some of these chips? Stokely inquired. I passed her the bag, and they both reached in while munching on their sandwiches. I finished mine, and they seemed eager for more. I poured another glass of milk for each of them, and they drank it down. I was amazed as they polished off their plates and devoured all the vegetables, down to the last crumb. They must have been famished. Time for bed, I informed them. You each have your own bathroom. Toothbrushes, combs, and such are in there. There's aspirin, stomach medicine, toothpaste, and floss in the first aid kits. If you need anything else, just ask. Can we lock the doors? Maggie asked. Sure, but if I need you to, you'll have to unlock them promptly, I explained. They eyed me oddly. A realization dawned in Maggie's vivid green eyes. He's worried we'll swipe something, she explained to her sister. We won't, Mac. It's okay if you don't fully trust us. We're not entirely trusting you either, I chuckled. Fair enough. Mutual distrust it is. Soon enough you'll find you can trust me. I hardly ever injure pretty girls, I quipped, eliciting another pair of radiant smiles. I think they appreciated the pretty part. They followed me to their rooms, and I heard the locks click as I returned to bed. I lay awake for a while, pondering. What led these girls to this situation? Why were they rummaging through my trash? Why were they alone? Where was their family? I resolved to get some answers in the morning. As I dressed, I heard the floor creaking in the hallway. Opening the door a crack, I spotted them creeping into the living room. Thinking they might be planning to leave, I opened the door wider. They froze. Girls, ready for breakfast? I asked. They exchanged glances. Maybe we should just go, Maggie suggested. You're not going to lock us up or anything, are you? You mean make you stay? I clarified. They glanced at each other again, then back at me, nodding. No, I won't force you to do anything, I assured. It's against my principles to compel anyone. But I'd like you to join me for breakfast. They exchanged another look. Will you let us leave after? Stokely asked. If that's what you want, I replied. Actually, I was hoping you'd spend the day with me. But if you have somewhere else to be, that's fine. Yeah, we have to meet our stockbroker, Maggie grinned, her eyes lighting up. What are you making us? Actually, what are you making us? Are you an English teacher or something? Maggie teased. As a matter of fact, yes, I confirmed. I teach English Lit at the university. Cool, Stokely remarked. We don't go to school. Too busy. But you're having breakfast now, aren't you? I pointed out. I was thinking waffles with bacon. Do you like that? They did, so we headed in, and they fetched the waffle iron while I prepared the batter. They made the waffles while I fried up 2 pounds of bacon. I'm a bit of a syrup snob. And I'm a coffee snob, Maggie added. I had Maggie take charge of the bacon while I ground the coffee beans and fired up the coffee maker. It all came together quite nicely, and we enjoyed real maple syrup with our waffles. They irked me by asking for coffee creamer. I'm saving some for the barbarians and Brianna, who loved the vanilla cake, I quipped. We devoured all the bacon, and they each polished off 3 waffles. Stick with me, girls, and in a week you'll be as plump as toads, I joked. They both chuckled, and it was the most delightful sound. Then they guzzled down their milk like hungry calves. My pantry definitely needed restocking. So tell me about Maggie and Stokely, I prompted. What's your story? Why resort to digging through trash for food? We took our coffee into the living room, and they shared a heartbreaking tale. Their father, once a car mechanic, sank into hard drinks and misuse post-unemployment, leaving their lives when they were young. Their mother divorced him, and they lost contact. In a battered Detroit economy, job prospects were slim. Their mother drove a cab, but Tragedy struck when she picked up a passenger who fatally stabbed her for her meager earnings. Left to die, they ended up in foster care, enduring molestation from the homeowner before fleeing to live on the streets for 3 months. With the surname Steele, they feared the elements, violence, and hunger, struggling to survive day by day. As they recounted their ordeal, I sat in silence, heart heavy with empathy. How many others faced similar fates? It dawned on me that this was a more prevalent struggle than I'd realized. Could I help them? The idea seemed daunting. As a single man, taking in 2 young girls might raise eyebrows and bureaucratic hurdles. They interrupted my thoughts. "Mac, are you married?" Stokely inquired. "I was," I admitted. My ex thought I lacked ambition. She's a high-flying lawyer, worldly and all. Marriage didn't fit into her picture. "What a idiot," Maggie chimed in. I chuckled. "She's actually a good person. No cheating or anything. We're still close friends." We both realized we were too young and naive. "How old are you?" Stokely asked. "I'm 28, I replied. "And you?" "I'm 11 and she's 13, Stokely responded. "What's on the agenda today?" "Well, we're going to chat," I started. "And I'll introduce you to someone." Opening the garage door, a furry blur dashed in. Spotting our guests, he bounded over, leaping onto the sofa and nuzzling into their laps, his big pink tongue lavishing affection. "Meet Granville," I introduced. I affectionately call him Grandma. They erupted into fits of giggles as he showered them with licks. Weighing in at about 130 pounds, he was immovable. I'm certain he outweighed them both. "Lie down, Grandma," I commanded, and he reluctantly obeyed, sprawling across their laps. "He's massive," Stokely chuckled, running her hand over his head. "What kind of dog is he? He looks like a striped tiger." "He's a bull mastiff," I explained. "The pattern is called brindle, which gives him that color." "He looks like he could snap our faces off," Maggie observed. "Yeah, he could, but he won't. He's friendly with my pals. He sees you chilling in our house, being friendly, and that's why he adores you. If you were hostile towards me, he'd be on high alert and very defensive. Now that he knows you, he won't tolerate anyone being hostile towards you. If I raise my voice at you, he won't like it. He cares deeply for those he loves." Stokely hopped down and draped herself over him, embracing his neck as he licked her hand. "I adore him," she declared. "He's so wrinkly and cute." "Does he stay in the garage?" "No, he's an indoor dog," I clarified. "Yesterday he got sick, so I put him outside to avoid making a mess in the house." "Why was he sick?" Stokely inquired. "He eats things he shouldn't, like sticks, bugs, and who knows what else. But he seems fine now." "Gross," Maggie remarked. "He licked my face." "Yeah, he's adorable," I admitted. "He's my buddy, so I just deal with it. And he'll be your buddy too if you let him. We should take him for a walk." I grabbed his leash, and Maggie insisted on leading him. But it's more like he leads whoever's holding the leash. So she stayed a few yards ahead of Stokely and me, getting dragged along. Stokely slipped her little hand into mine. I glanced down at her and she smiled up at me. Man, she was beautiful. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Absolutely, sweetheart," I assured her. "I enjoy holding hands with pretty girls." She blushed faintly but didn't let go. We walked for a couple of miles, and by the time we returned, Grandma was panting and drooling. Despite the cold, he soldiered on. We sipped more coffee and chatted all day. Finally, I broached the subject of helping them. "What can you do?" Maggie inquired skeptically. "Honestly, Maggie, I'm not entirely sure," I admitted. I mentioned I could speak to Brianna. She's a lawyer of a different kind. Maybe she'll have some ideas. "Is this the same woman?" Maggie asked. "Maggie? She's not that," I corrected. "Stop calling her that. Do you trust me?" They glanced at each other before nodding. "Yeah, I guess," Stokely replied. "You've been really nice to us." "Well, let's give her a call and see if she can make it," I suggested. "You'll like her. Just give her a chance." Brianna, busy but agreeable, joined us for dinner. Brie's a tall, stunning redhead. She's gorgeous, but she's never realized it, I described. I could see the girls were impressed. When she arrived, she greeted me with a passionate kiss and embraced both girls. "You've replaced me," she teased the girls. "No, Breezy, you're irreplaceable. You know that," I joked back. She seemed genuinely pleased. I assured the girls that we were still friends, which we were. Friends with benefits. We still shared great closeness together, sometimes once a week or more, with fervent lovemaking during her week-long stays. She simply didn't have time for a husband, and I doubted she'd ever marry again. We cared for each other, but marriage wasn't in the cards for us. As lovers, we got along great, but as spouses, we argued incessantly. "So, who are your new friends?" she inquired, smiling at them, leaving them starstruck. "I'm Maggie, and she's Stokely," Maggie introduced. "Nice to meet you," Bree greeted them. "You know this guy's dangerous, right?" "Not to us," Stokely remarked. "I think he could be dangerous to someone he's enemies with. He has a club and a very large dog." Bree nudged Grandma with her boot, and he grunted in protest. "Hey, big guy." She knelt down and embraced him. "Do you miss me?" He rolled his eyes, but lacked the energy to lift his head. "What's on your mind, Mac?" she asked. "Why'd you want to talk to me? Not that I mind being invited to dinner. He's a fantastic cook, girls. If you can motivate him, I think he cooked lamb chops." "We've never had anything like this," Maggie remarked. "Well, then I'm in for a treat, but what's the occasion?" she pressed. "We had dinner, and I explained. We need your help, Breezy," I informed her. "We're clueless about legal matters. The girls are orphans. Well, their father might be alive, but no one knows where he is. He abandoned them, and their mother was eliminated. They were in foster care, and some creeps started intimidating them. They ran away, and are living on the streets. They were rummaging through my trash for food, and I caught them. Now, we're trying to figure out a way to keep them off the streets." She studied me for a moment. "You want them, don't you? Goodness, Mac, you've always wanted children, and because I didn't give you any, you want them, don't you?" I blushed. "Yes, I do. I kind of do." "What do you think is the best approach, Bree?" "I don't think it's feasible," she responded. "No family court will give you 2 young girls. You're a solitary man. This is a recipe for disaster. They won't approve it." I glanced at the girls, who stared back at me with wide eyes. "What's wrong?" I inquired. Their gazes met before they broke into tears and rushed to hug me. "Did you really want to keep us with you?" Stokely choked out between sobs. "I can't believe it. I never thought we'd find anyone. Anyone." She struggled to speak through her tears. I held them close. "Yes, girls. I did consider it. You need someone to care for you. I need someone too. I thought maybe we could do it together." Their small bodies trembled as they clung to me. I looked helplessly at Bree as tears streaked down her cheeks. She glanced between the girls and me. "Darn it, Mac, look at what you've done to me. Just when I think I've got you figured out, you surprise me. What am I going to do with you?" There was a peculiar expression on her face, as if she were seeing me in a new light. "Let me think about this for a few days. Girls, you're coming with me. It wouldn't work if you stayed here with Mac. It would ruin everything if anyone found out. Mac, we're taking Grandma with us. I can't leave him here, and he'll have to take care of them." She swept out of the house like a whirlwind, carrying Grandma with her, and drove off in her Mercedes. "I'll call you," she promised. She called 3 times for about 30 seconds each over the next 2 weeks. I didn't see her or the girls until she phoned me Friday morning, saying she wanted to meet for dinner at Alfonso's, a charming Italian restaurant in Pontiac, where we often dined. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at the bar with men circling around her. As soon as she spotted me, she left them gaping and came over to me. We walked to our booth. She nudged me and sat beside me, which was unusual as she typically sat across from me, indicating something was different. We placed our orders, and she remained silent for a while. "You know I love you, right, Mac?" she finally began. "Yes, I love you too," I replied. "I don't mean I love your mom or anything like that. I'm in love with you, Mac. I always have been, since that day at Cedar Point. You're the only man I've ever loved or will ever love," she confessed. "I trust you completely. I love everything about you, except being married to you. You know me. I like my freedom. No commitments, no baggage, nothing tying me down. I love my job and my life, but I don't love them any more than I love you. And I don't have to choose. You're as faithful as Grandma. We understand each other. I'm not physically engaged with anyone but you. I've never felt this way before. You've always understood me. That's why what I'm about to propose will sound incredibly strange." "Oh," I chuckled. "Sounds like I'm in for a surprise." She shot me a "you fool" look. "Yes, you are. Will you marry me, Mac?" I nearly choked on my wine. Choking on wine isn't ideal. When I regained my composure, I sat there dumbfounded. "Stop playing around and give me an answer," she snapped. "Absolutely not," I finally managed. "Why, Bree? We just make each other miserable. We'll be at each other's throats in a month. What's wrong with what we have now?" "Nothing," she agreed. "This isn't about us. It's about the sweetest, most adorable girls on the planet. Mac, I'm head over heels in love with them. You turned my world upside down when you invited me over that night. They're desperate to see you. They cry and beg me every night to come and see you. The problem is, I won't give them up. I've never had as much fun and joy in my life as I have with them. None of us have a stable home life. No judge in their right mind would give them to any of us. But if we were married, they'd grant us custody in a heartbeat, so I need them. And I'll have to take you as part of the deal. If you want them, you'll have to put up with me. Can we make this work, Mac? I doubt it, I told her. You're as troublesome as me. You come home drunk, you're always late for everything except work, and sometimes you don't come home at all, or even call. Come on, Bree, we've already been down that road, I sighed. Yeah, I know. But what if things could be different this time? She pleaded. I can't wait to get back home tonight. I always let them know if I'm running late. And ever since they came into my life, I've only been having 1 glass of wine each night. I never imagined I could feel this way. Marry me, Mac. Give us a chance, she implored. I think there's something we need to discuss, I interjected. Go ahead, what's on your mind? Are we just going to talk in circles here? Tell me what's on your mind. Do you want me to start? I took a long sip of my drink and motioned for another glass of wine from the waiter. Go ahead, I encouraged her. What drives me crazy about you is your need to control everything, she declared. You want to know every detail of my life. Where I am, who I'm with, what I'm doing, when I'll be home. It's like you're paranoid. If you could just let go and allow me to be myself, maybe we'd still be together. But you'll never be able to do that. It's maddening. Surely you know by now that you're the only person I've ever been interested in. You do know that, right, Mac? Yeah, probably, I admitted. It used to get under my skin. I was afraid you'd find someone else and leave me. That's never going to happen, she assured me. I haven't even thought about another person since the day I met you. Sure, I go out to dinners with clients and colleagues. I hit the dance floor with groups, both men and women. I'm having fun. That's just who I am. But since meeting you, no one has ever come close to touching me lovingly, and they never will. Do you believe me? Yes, I do. It's the same for me. I trust you, Bree. I know you'd never do anything to hurt me. You're just so carefree and independent. I'm as in love with you as I was on our wedding day. I think you feel the same about me. And we were comfortable where we were, I acknowledged. Well, I'm not comfortable with that anymore, she stated firmly. There are 2 girls who need a family. I love them nearly as much as I love you. I love them more than my job. I want to be a part of their lives. And I can see that can only happen if we do it together. So will you give me a chance, Mac? Will you marry me and try to love me so we can have this family together? I'll never have children of my own. I'm too vain and selfish for that. But we can take these girls. Marry me, Mac, and I'll do everything I can to make you incredibly happy. Okay. Clearly you've had time to think about this, I acquiesced. Give me some time too, okay? She glanced at her watch. You've got 20 minutes, she informed me. Oh, great. So now there's a deadline? I quipped. Yes, they'll be waiting outside in 20 minutes, she confirmed. They should arrive in 10 minutes. They'll walk with Grandma for about 10 minutes. Then a car will pick us up to take us to your place. We wrapped up our meal quickly and stepped outside. A limo was waiting, but the girls were still absent. The driver mentioned they were out with the dog, not seeming too pleased about it, perhaps due to potential drool on the upholstery. After a short wait, I spotted them hurrying towards us. Let's go, Maggie urged as they neared. There's a sketchy guy eyeing us. Grandma's not a fan. He got a growl. Glancing down the sidewalk, I noticed a young man approaching. He looked about 20, adorned with tattoos and piercings, his attire giving off a wannabe tough guy vibe. What's your deal? He snapped at me. Nothing. We're leaving, I replied. Looks like everything's yours. A fancy jacket, lovely ladies, and a big ride, he remarked. Seems like you're flush with cash. The guy was out of his mind. I towered over him by 8 inches and outweighed him by at least 100 pounds, not to mention lacking his protruding gut. You best be moving along, buddy, I warned. My dog here's not fond of you. Closing in about 4 feet, he retorted, I ain't scared of no dog. His hand reached under his jacket to his waistband, revealing a glint of metal. Without hesitation, I delivered a swift kick to his chest, sending him sprawling backward. A weapon tumbled from his waistband to the ground. Startled, Maggie dropped Grandma's leash as he lunged. The guy shielded his face as Grandma clamped down on his forearm, eliciting a pained yelp and a torn sleeve from his hooded sweatshirt. Up, Granville, I commanded, and he obediently resumed his place beside me. The assailant writhed on the ground, and I approached, Grandma at my side. Go ahead, Grandma, I instructed. Lunging forward, Grandma's massive jaws closed around the man's neck, freezing him in terror. "You're a real piece of work," I spat at him. "Got a few screws loose?" His head nodded ever so slightly, terror etched on his face. "Say it," I demanded. Silence ensued. "Bite, Grandma," I urged. A muffled scream escaped him as blood trickled down his neck, Grandma's powerful jaws sinking into his flesh. The rhythmic sound of snorting breaths filled the air. "Say it," I pressed. "I'm a piece of work," he choked out. "How much cash you carrying?" I interrogated. "Hand it over." Reluctantly, he reached into his pocket, prompting Grandma to tighten his grip. "Slowly," I cautioned. When he turned over, he produced a bundle and passed it to me. "Release him, Grandma," I ordered. Reluctantly, he obeyed, and the man hastily backed away. "I'll give you a 20-yard head start," I warned. "After that, he's coming for you. Suggest you make tracks." With the speed of a sprinter, he darted off, but his pants slid down, causing him to stumble. Hastily readjusting, he fled, clutching his trousers with his uninjured hand. I yelled out, "You need a belt!" Turning to the girls, I found all three of them frozen in astonishment. Swiftly, I kicked the weapon into the storm drain. "What's wrong?" I asked. Bree was the first to react. "You're one tough cookie. Mac, note to self, never get on your bad side." The girls rushed over to me and I embraced them. "Oh my God," murmured Stokely into my chest. "I was scared of that guy, but you handled it like a boss." "Thank you. You did this for us, didn't you?" "Well, no one messes with my girls," I reassured her. "He left you a little something for your college fund." Handing her the bundle, she counted. It totaled $700. He must have robbed it from a few more unsuspecting folks. Later, she split it with Maggie, and we piled into the car. Glancing back, I hugged Maggie and noticed something. "A van is pulling up," I remarked. "I know," Bree confirmed. "It's got some of our stuff." I arched an eyebrow at her. "Yeah, I'm aware. I tend to take a lot for granted," she chuckled. "Girls," Mac addressed them. "Yes, we'll tie the knot again and keep you with us." They gasped and squealed. "Really?" Maggie turned to Mac. "She's not so bad after all. You were right. We adore Bree. She's been so good to us. We've got heaps of new clothes, and she got us into this amazing school. We'll make you proud. Promise we won't let you down." "We know you won't, honey," Bree reassured them. "Don't sweat it," she added. I was somewhat stunned. I tried to speak, but the words eluded me. "You okay?" Max Stokely inquired. Bree chuckled. "He's not. He goes into full-on panic mode. His perfectly ordered world's turned upside down. His house is always immaculate. Everything's in pristine condition. We'll have our underwear hanging in his shower, mix up his books, leave rings on the coffee table. It'll drive him nuts. I honestly don't know how he'll cope with Granville. We'll have to love him so much that crumbs on the table won't bother him. Can we handle that?" I groaned. And I never agreed to any of this. I said Bree's like a hurricane, sweeps us off our feet, turns everything topsy-turvy. "Do you love Bree?" Stokely asked me. "Yes, but from across town," I tried to clarify. "But we all need to be together," Maggie chimed in. They all burst into laughter at this, and I couldn't help but join in. It was all so absurd. How did things spiral out of control like this? As usual, Brianna had managed to turn my little mission to help some girls into a full-blown marriage and adoption plan. Small actions can really throw your life off course, I mused. This was a harebrained scheme, I told Bree as we arrived at my house. There was a flurry of activity as movers carried in heaps of belongings and distributed them to various rooms. To my surprise, stacks of women's clothing kept appearing in Maggie's and Stokely's rooms one after the other. "Where'd you girls get all this?" I asked Maggie as she hurried past. "Bree took us shopping a few times," she said, vanishing into her room. Bree stuck her head out of my room. "Gosh, Mac, do you ever get rid of anything? You still have stuff from when we got married. I'm tossing this. I need drawer and closet space." I rushed to rescue my school jacket with letters from the trash heap. "Cut it out, Brianna," I shouted. "These things can't be thrown away. If I didn't want it, I wouldn't have it. This is my home, and I'll boot your skinny rear out if you don't quit." She shot me a fierce look. "Skinny rear, huh?" She snickered. Grabbing me by the sleeve of my jacket, she pulled me into the bedroom. "It looks like a tornado hit." In one swift move, she locked the door, slipped off her dress, and leaned over, placing her hands on the bed. It took my breath away. She wasn't wearing any underwear. The next morning, we made love. I slept until 10 o'clock and then stumbled into the shower. By the time I shaved and showered, I started feeling somewhat human. Bree was still asleep, her flame-colored hair spilling over her face as she lay on her stomach. God, her backside was incredible. I headed to the living room where Grandma was snoring, drooling over a stack of my best shirts. I sighed. Grabbing a glass of orange juice and a bun, I said, "Come on, Grandma, let's get out of this mess." He lifted his head, rolled his eyes, and got up with a groan. We went out to the backyard, where he did his business and then came over to lie on my legs. Basking in the sun, I felt as lazy as a fat lizard. It was an unusually warm day for this time of year. The door opened, and Stokely stepped out with a glass of milk and a bun. "Hi, Angel," I waved. "Hey, Mac." She closed the door. Standing for a moment, she then made her way to the glider where I was sitting. "Is there enough space for me?" she asked. I shifted over and she settled onto my lap, resting her feet in the space I made. Curling up with a sigh, she took a bite of the bun. Her big green eyes locked onto mine. "Mac," she began, crumbs scattering across our laps. I interrupted. "Eat first, then talk." She giggled but stayed silent until her mouth was empty. "Mac," she resumed, "if you adopt us, will you be our dad and Bree our mom?" "Would you want that?" I asked. "Oh yes," she said. "Bree would be the coolest mom ever. You might not be cool, but you're dependable. I love you, and I think you'd make the best dad." I was nearly speechless. "Well," I mumbled, "being dependable is good, even if it's not cool." She chuckled. "I didn't mean it like that. I mean, she's like a whirlwind, and you're like a mountain. You know, she really, really loves you. She talks about you all the time. She's told us everything about you and her. Do you love her?" "Yes, dear. But as you said, she's a whirlwind. It's like trying to love a thunderstorm or a forest fire. Mountains don't mind thunderstorms or forest fires," I said. "Maggie kind of resembles her. I'm more like you." She nestled against my chest. "I think if we wanted to, we could just let them whirl around us, and we'd be the calm in the center of their storm," she said, looking at me. "I want you to be our dad, Mac. I never thought we'd find someone like you and Bree, too." She shed a few tears. "We were so scared and so alone." "Mac, is there space in your life for girls like us?" I pulled her closer to me. "In my heart, Stokely, there's always been a place for someone like you and Maggie to love me. For years, I never thought I'd have something like this." Bree had never shown any interest in having kids. "I think you girls changed her life as much as you changed mine. I've seen the way she looks at you. It's like she woke up one day and realized she loves being a mom." "I've never seen anything affect her the way you do. You were right about her," she admitted. "She's amazing. Sometimes it's just incredible. She decides to do something and you're along for the ride." I chuckled. "I know, right? She's always been like that. The first time we met, a group of us college students went to an amusement park. She decided I'd be her ride partner. I actually came because I was interested in someone else. She whisked me away, and we never saw the others in our group again. We were 20, and I fell for her that day. She's like a force of nature. It just sweeps in and takes over your life. We had our first fight a month after we got married." "What was it about?" she asked. "You'll find this funny. It was about shoes. She kept moving mine and putting hers in their place. I had to rummage through her stuff to find mine." She says I'm obsessed. Maybe she's right. But is it too much to ask her to keep her shoes on her side of the closet? She just exploded. Then I drove her nuts and she drove me nuts. I've got a plan for what I'm doing tomorrow. She's totally spontaneous. It's part of who she is, and I love it. But it drives me nuts. She loves how organized I am, but it drives her nuts. These things clash, and we just get on each other's nerves." She giggled. "Maggie and I argue about things like this too. She spends half her life searching for what she's lost. She'll get up and decide on a whim what we're doing. I think we need to adapt a bit, Mac. We need to go with the flow more. They need to understand that we like things in their place. Can we work this out?" I don't know," I replied. "We never really had a reason to try. Bree and I have a strange relationship. I love her more than ever now. I think she feels the same, but she's not one to talk about it. She just does. We're closer now than when we were married, and I have affection for her. During our marriage, I didn't do much. I loved her, but we were constantly upset with each other. We sort of just got married without really feeling the need to change. I think we were too immature and selfish, but it somehow worked for us. Perhaps we needed someone like you to make us realize what we were missing. The notion of being a family is both thrilling and frightening. What if we mess it up? We're gambling everything on a leap of faith. I detest uncertainty." "I understand, but sometimes you just have to take a leap," she remarked. "You can't expect to gain anything good without the risk of it going wrong." I embraced her, and she purred like a kitten. "You're the wisest 11-year-old I've ever met," I remarked. I'll be 12 next month, she corrected. She finished her bun, and we headed back to the house. The other two hadn't risen yet, so we took Grandma for a walk. By the time we returned, the late risers were finally up. Bree has never been a morning person, and it seems Maggie isn't either. They both resembled beautiful, tousled, sleepy cats. They stretched and yawned for a good while. After their showers, they transformed into human dynamos. Bree whisked us away to obtain our marriage license, file for adoption, arrange temporary custody, and then go out for dinner. We had seafood, and the girls were thrilled with how tasty it was. They were particularly impressed with the prices. "Wow, Mac, you must be raking in the dough," Maggie exclaimed. I chuckled. "I'm comfortable," I assured her. "I don't mind sharing that I earn around $90,000 a year. I could support all of us if needed. Bree makes 10 times more than me." They stared at her, stunned for a moment. She laughed. "It's just money," she said. "The point is, we can afford to treat you girls to dinner whenever you want. Mac can cook most things better than restaurants if we can convince him to." "You cook?" Maggie inquired. "Yes, but mostly simple dishes," she replied. "Anyone can follow a recipe, but he's a culinary genius." "She's really quite skilled," I affirmed. I told them if she could just overcome her habit of being easily distracted, she'd be fantastic. She playfully hit me. "Make one mistake, and he'll never let you live it down," she teased. During our first year of marriage, we didn't have a dog that would eat burnt food. If you throw it in the trash, the whole house stinks. She used to take it out to the backyard and leave it at the base of a tree. It was as if we were making a burnt offering to the tree. "Goodness!" They laughed heartily. Bree was in a particularly good mood and nestled up to me. I hugged her tightly, and the girls giggled. "We've never dined at a place like this," Maggie remarked. "Maggie?" Bree addressed her with a serious tone. "That's not going to happen. If you keep talking like that, you'll kick Mac out of the house within a week. I know you can do better. Try again." Maggie pondered for a moment. "We've never dined at a place like this," she stated with a triumphant smile as I nodded in agreement. "We know how to speak," Bree interjected. "I mean truly speak," she clarified. "We just fell into the habit of talking like everyone else on the street. We attended school until my mother passed away. We excelled academically." "I believe in you, dear," Bree assured her. "I'm confident you'll succeed. Though we're from Detroit, we possess sophistication." The girls appeared on the verge of bursting with pride. Bree also gave them etiquette lessons. They mimicked her attire, learned her mannerisms, and emulated her grooming habits. After 6 months, one might have assumed they had been raised and educated in New England amidst high society for their entire lives. They adapted quickly, excelling academically. That evening marked the beginning. Bree was exhilarated. Upon our return home, she instructed the girls to turn on the TV and leave it on all night. They looked at her with curiosity. "Your father and I need some time alone," she winked at them. They erupted into hysterical giggles, blushing beet red. Bree pulled me into the bedroom. "We're celebrating," she informed me. "What's the occasion?" I inquired. "It's the beginning of something amazing," she declared. "I love you, Mac. Never doubt it. We'll do this every night. I'll remind you of my love, then show you how we've always been. Explosive in bed. Tonight, I want to take it to a whole new level. And then, we'll maintain this level for the rest of our lives. Do you understand? Show me," I challenged. She unpinned her hair, letting it cascade down. Rarely worn loose, it reached the top of her backside, thick and wavy. Twirling it like a dancer, she approached me, turning her back. "Unleash the lightning," she whispered. I unzipped her blue dress, my knuckles trailing down her spine. She winced, stepping aside and releasing her locks into the air. Dropping her shoulders, the dress fell, briefly grazing her chest and thighs before pooling at her feet. Exiting gracefully, her heels accentuating her calves, she was magnificent. Men orbited around her like moths to a flame. Her smoldering intensity focused on me, making me feel special. Her hands slipped behind her back and her bra fell away, revealing her impressive bosom against her creamy white skin. "I think someone's overdressed," she teased. "What shall we do about it?" I inquired. Pushing me onto the bed, she straddled me, her scent masking the Chanel she wore, subtle and seductive. Undoing my shirt buttons, she freed me from my trousers, leaving my hands restrained. Pushing me back, she undid my belt and pants, sliding them off along with my boots and socks. It was a new level of sensuality. She exuded heat, a creature of allure and mystery. In that moment, I realized how deeply I loved her, willing to sacrifice anything for her without hesitation. Our lovemaking became intense and wild. unlike anything before. Locking eyes with me, she raised her head. "Mac, I love you," she confessed. "I've always known it. I'm selfish, I admit it. I've never truly given myself to anyone until now. Do you want me, Mac? For the first time in my life, I'm ready. Ready to be your partner, your lover, your wife, the mother of our girls. Will you guide me? Love me and be patient with me? I swear you'll never regret it." "I'm ready, Mac, if you'll have me. Do you love me as much?" I silenced her with a passionate kiss. "I love you more than anything," I declared. "But you'll need to guide me too. Be patient with me as I am with you. I've always loved you. Together, we can do this. I'll do anything for you," she whispered. "For the girls too. I never imagined I could feel this way. They came into my life, and I can't help but love them. I'm scared, Mac. Terrified I'll be a bad mother. It's always been my fear, which is why I never entertained the thought of having children. I fear I'll ruin them. I don't know how to be a mother, Mac. Well, I don't know how to be a father either," I chuckled. "But I suspect I'll be a great one. It's something you learn by doing. No one knows what they're doing until they do it. I don't know how to be a husband either. At least not a good one. We messed up the first time, Brianna." "I know," she whispered. "Mostly me. I was so immature. In many ways I still am, Mac. But I'll try my best to grow." "Yes, me too," I said, holding her close. Eventually, we drifted off to sleep. Upon waking, we took a shower together, giggling like schoolchildren. After drying off, she slipped into her pajamas. "What's the plan?" I inquired. "If I'm not mistaken, we'll have guests soon," she replied with a smile. "You better get dressed too. I'm too lazy to get up now." I threw on some boxers and a t-shirt. And within 10 minutes of getting back into bed, there was a knock at the door. "Come in," Bree called out. Stokely popped her head in, her face lighting up at the sight of us. She darted across the room to join us, inadvertently leaving the door ajar, allowing our furry friend to saunter in and settle across our legs, purring contentedly. A few minutes later, Maggie joined the fray, and we engaged in an impromptu wrestling match with Grandma. With his teeth and drool, he emerged victorious, so we bundled him up in a blanket and escorted him out of the bedroom. Finally free from his presence, we all piled back into bed for some cuddles. About 30 minutes later, hunger pangs struck, so we headed to the diner for breakfast. At 2 p.m., Bree announced that we had an appointment but kept the details under wraps. She led us to the municipal court. "What's going on?" I asked. "The most important case of my life," she chuckled, ushering us into one of the courtrooms where the magistrate awaited, asking if we were ready. "Ready for what?" I wondered aloud. Bree knelt down, producing a box from her purse. "Mac, will you marry me again?" she asked. "This time, I promise it's forever. You know I never stopped loving you or wanting to be your wife. You're the only man I've ever loved or will ever love. Please, Mac, marry me." In the box were our wedding rings, along with hers. "Are you sure, Brianna?" I inquired. "I've never been more sure," she said, turning to the girls for support. "He's so stubborn." "Yes, please, Mac," they chimed in. "Bree really loves you. We want to be a family. We love you too." And we love Bree. How could I say no? It took about 10 minutes, and it was official. Bree treated us to dinner at a new Greek restaurant to celebrate. As I looked around, I saw my future unfold before me. The most beautiful woman in the world is my wife, and 2 lovely daughters who would grow into remarkable women. Can we make it work? Only time will tell. It took about a month to gain custody of the girls. Bree worked tirelessly to make it happen. When we finally did, they were overjoyed, and we were ecstatic. Bree sold her apartment, and we settled into life in my house. I worried that Bree and I might get on each other's nerves, especially at first. About 3 weeks after remarrying, we had a minor spat when Bree went to dinner with a client. Forgot to call us. When she got back home, she was met with 6 accusing eyes. "What?" she asked. Stokely picked up the phone, and Bree's eyes filled with understanding. She opened her mouth and burst into tears. Gathering us all on the couch, she knelt down in front of us and just started sobbing. "I'm so sorry," she managed. "I just forgot to call. I should have. Please don't be mad at me. I'll try not to do it again. I can't promise, but I'll tell my assistant to remind me. I was so focused on finishing the meeting and getting home. Do you forgive me, Stokely? Mac, I'm really sorry." Bree rarely apologized, maybe a dozen times in her life. This marked the start of a completely new dynamic between us. We both made efforts to keep each other happy, and the girls were incredible at helping us. Sometimes it felt like they were the adults, and we were the kids. We had a few minor disagreements, but I'd never felt so content and happy. There was a private school on campus where I taught, and Bree enrolled the girls there. They traveled with me to and from school, and during these trips we bonded. They confided in me about everything, filling my life with their enthusiasm. After classes, we'd head home, they'd do their homework, usually taking a couple of hours. Once they were done, we'd take Grandma for a walk. Dinner started at 5. If we were eating at home, Bree usually got back by 6:30. If she was running late, she'd call, and on those nights, we'd dine out. When Maggie turned 16, Bree asked what she wanted for her birthday. She said she wanted her driver's license. She studied and practiced for 2 weeks and passed the exams on her first try. The night before her birthday, Bree brought it up in bed. "I want to buy her a car," she said. "What kind?" I asked. "A new Camaro convertible," she replied. "How much?" I inquired. "Does it matter?" she retorted. "No, not really," I replied. "I just like to know everything, Bree." "I know," she said, kissing me. "I think we can get the one I want for around $60,000. I whistled. "That's a hefty price tag, but she's an amazing girl. She deserves it." "Yes," Brianna smiled. "There's been a lot of bad in their lives, Mac. Let's make sure they only have good now." We ordered the car, bright yellow with black stripes and interior, a big V8. Against my judgment, Brianna thought it would hold its value better, and she was probably right. Either way, I knew it would drive Maggie crazy. When the car arrived, we parked it in the garage. As it was time to leave for school, the girls grabbed their bags and followed me to the car. Bree was in the garage, and I didn't unlock the doors. "Dad," Stokely said, "let us in." "Not today," I said. "You'll drive, Maggie." "Mom isn't going to work?" she asked. "No, she's leaving," I replied. "Then how will I get there?" she asked. I pressed the garage door opener. "You're driving," I said, pointing inside. Her eyes widened, and Maggie began to cry. I jumped out of the car, and Brianna rushed down the driveway. We hugged Maggie together. "What's wrong, dear?" I asked. "We thought you'd be happy. This is your car. We're giving it to you for your birthday." She tried to speak, but she was too upset for us to understand. She buried her face in my chest, and we held and comforted her until she calmed down enough to talk. Stokely joined us, and finally, we got Maggie to speak. "I don't need a car," she choked out. "I love you guys so much, and this is too much. We don't want you to feel like you have to buy us things. Stokely and I already talked about this. We don't need anything. We just need you to love us." She broke down again. "Honey, we really do love you," Brianna reassured her. "We love you both more than anything in the world. Having you girls is a dream come true for both of us. We love buying things for you. We work hard and earn a lot of money so we can buy things for our girls. Making you happy is how we show our love. It might not be a grand gesture, but it's our way." Stokely was in tears now, too. I kissed them both on the cheeks. "Let's go," I said. "This is a really cool car. Let's at least go take a look." They wiped their eyes and let me lead them to the garage. I opened the door for Maggie, and Brianna helped Stokely into the passenger seat. Maggie gripped the steering wheel and looked at me. A smile spread across her beautiful face. "It suits you," I told her. "Start her up." The powerful V8 engine roared to life, and they both trembled with excitement. I closed the door and tapped on the window. Maggie lowered it, and I kissed her again. "See you at school," I said. She pulled out onto the street and paused. Brianna and I stood nearby, watching. Then her door swung open and she leapt out, throwing herself into our arms and showering us with kisses. "I love you so much," she repeated. "Thank you. You're the best mom and dad in the world." She dashed back to her car, and they drove off. I turned to Brianna, who was crying like a baby. For some inexplicable reason, tears filled my own eyes. "Look at us," I said. "You'd think there were 3 of us or something." "That was a wonderful idea, Bree. You're an amazing woman." We hugged each other tightly for a long while. I knew I'd be late for class, but I didn't mind. When Stokely turned 16, we gave her the same car. It wasn't as emotional, but it was still special. We took them to Hawaii and Belize. When they graduated from high school, Maggie was already in college. The day Stokely started college, I came home to find Brianna crying on the couch. I sat beside her, hugged her, and we sat in silence for a while. She rested her head on my chest and cried softly. Finally, she looked up at me, tears filling her big blue eyes. "Our kids are all grown up, Mac," she said. "I know," I replied, kissing her. "It's what kids do." She cupped my face in her hands, looking into my eyes. "Let's have another one, Mac," she said. This time, just you and me. I want a baby, Mac." Overwhelmed, she started crying again. "I never thought this would happen. I love you so much, and I already miss them terribly. I want to experience it all over again. It was so incredible. I know they're only 60 miles away, but I miss them." "Me too, kitten," I said. "Maybe if we're going to have this baby, we should go practice." She gasped, staring at me. "Really? Do you want that? I mean, to have a baby?" "Of course," I said. "I hope it's a red-haired girl like you. I love you with all my heart, Brianna." I scooped her up and carried her through the empty house to our bedroom to start practicing. We had to shoo Granville out, but I found I rather enjoyed making babies. As I drifted off to sleep, the picture on the nightstand of Maggie and Stokely held my gaze. They didn't look like a Ford. Not at all.
Logan Hayes drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, stuck in Charlotte's evening traffic. His mind wasn't on the brake lights ahead, but on the growing unease that had taken root in his gut over the past few months. As he pulled into the driveway of his sprawling suburban home, Logan's eyes swept over the manicured lawn and pristine exterior. Everything looked perfect, just as it always had, but appearances, he was learning, could be deceiving. He entered the house, calling out, "I'm home." Silence greeted him. Logan's brow furrowed as he made his way through the foyer, his footsteps echoing on the marble floors. The house felt empty, devoid of the warmth it once held. "Camilla," he called again, loosening his tie. "In here," came a distant reply from the kitchen. Logan found his wife hunched over her phone at the kitchen island, manicured nails tapping away at the screen. She barely glanced up as he entered. "Hey," he said, leaning in for a kiss. Camilla turned her head at the last second, his lips grazing her cheek instead. "How was your day?" Logan asked, trying to keep the hurt from his voice. Camilla shrugged, eyes still glued to her phone. "Fine. Busy." Logan opened the fridge, grabbing a bottle of water. He took a long swig, studying his wife over the rim of the bottle. Her golden hair was perfectly styled. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she was ready for a night out, not a quiet evening at home. "Any plans tonight?" he asked casually. Camilla finally set her phone down, but her eyes didn't quite meet his. "Just drinks with the girls. You know, the usual Thursday thing." Logan nodded slowly. "Right? The usual." He thought back to when they'd first moved to Charlotte, fresh out of college. How they'd scrimped and saved, living in a tiny apartment while he built his logistics company from the ground up. Camilla had been by his side every step of the way, believing in his vision even when others doubted. Now, 15 years later, they had everything they'd ever dreamed of. A successful business, a beautiful home, 2 great kids. So why did it feel like it was all slipping away? "Well, have fun," Logan said, forcing a smile. "I think I'll head up to my office, catch up on some work." Camilla was already reaching for her phone again. Don't wait up." Logan climbed the stairs to his home office, each step feeling heavier than the last. He settled into his leather chair, booting up his computer. But instead of focusing on spreadsheets and shipping manifests, his mind kept circling back to Camilla. When had things changed? It wasn't just the lack of affection or the constant girls' nights. There was a coldness between them now, a distance he couldn't seem to bridge. Logan rubbed his temples, trying to push away the nagging doubts. He was probably overreacting. Camilla loved him. They were happy, weren't they? The sound of the front door closing snapped Logan out of his thoughts. He moved to the window, watching as Camilla's sleek sports car backed out of the driveway. She was certainly dressed up for a casual night with friends. Logan's jaw clenched. He'd built his business on trusting his instincts, and right now, every instinct was screaming that something was very wrong. He settled back at his desk, pulling up their joint bank statements. It was time to start paying closer attention. Hours passed as Logan combed through months of transactions. His unease grew with each swipe of his mouse. Charges at high-end restaurants he'd never been to. Spa days he hadn't known about. And most troubling, several charges from luxury hotels right here in Charlotte. Logan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Camilla was planning a surprise for their upcoming anniversary. Or perhaps she was helping plan an elaborate party for a friend. But deep down, Logan knew he was grasping at straws. The evidence was mounting, and it all pointed to one devastating conclusion. His wife was having an affair. The next morning, Logan went through the motions of getting ready for work. He kissed Camilla goodbye, pretending nothing was amiss. But as soon as she left to take the boys to school, he sprang into action. He called his assistant, instructing her to clear his schedule for the next few days. Family emergency, he explained vaguely. Then he packed a small bag, making sure Camilla saw it before he left. Last-minute business trip, he told her with a forced smile. I should be back by the weekend. Camilla barely looked up from her phone. Oh, okay. Have a safe flight. Logan's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he pulled out of the driveway. There was no business trip, no flight to catch. Instead, he drove to a nondescript hotel on the outskirts of town and checked in under an assumed name. From there, he began his stakeout. He tracked Camilla's movements through the GPS on her phone, watching and waiting. For 2 days, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But on the third night, everything changed. Logan sat in his rental car across from a trendy rooftop bar downtown. He'd watched Camilla arrive an hour ago, dressed to the nines. Now, he held his breath as a muscular man in his early 30s approached her table. Even from a distance, Logan could see the way Camilla's face lit up. She stood, embracing the man in a way that was far too intimate for a casual acquaintance. Logan's stomach churned as he watched them sit close together, heads bent in conversation. He snapped a few pictures with his phone, his hands shaking slightly. Part of him wanted to storm up there, to confront them both. But the rational part of his brain, the part that had made him a successful businessman, knew he needed more proof. So Logan waited, watching as Camilla and her companion shared drinks and lingering touches. When they finally left the bar, he followed at a discreet distance. His suspicions were confirmed when they both entered an upscale hotel, the man's hand resting possessively on the small of Camilla's back. Logan sat in his car long after they'd disappeared inside, his world crumbling around him. How long had this been going on? How could Camilla do this to him, to their family? Over the next few weeks, Logan became a ghost in his own life. He went through the motions at work and at home, all while secretly gathering more evidence. He followed Camilla to more clandestine meetings, documented her lies about her whereabouts, and tracked every suspicious transaction. But it wasn't enough. A gnawing doubt had taken root, one that threatened to consume him entirely. Logan found himself staring at family photos, his eyes drawn to his younger son, Asher. Unlike Liam, who was the spitting image of Logan, Asher had always looked different. At the time, Logan had chalked it up to Camilla's genes. Now he wasn't so sure. He remembered Camilla's insistence on naming Asher after her favorite actor, breaking the family tradition they'd followed with Liam. It had seemed innocent enough at the time, but now, Logan's hands shook as he ordered the home DNA test kit. When it arrived, he told himself he was being paranoid. Surely, Camilla's betrayal couldn't go back that far. But he had to know. Collecting the DNA samples was easier than he'd expected. A quick swab while the boys slept, and it was done. Logan mailed off the samples, then spent the next week in agony, jumping every time his phone buzzed with a new email. When the results finally came, Logan locked himself in his office to read them. His eyes scanned the report once, twice, 3 times. But the truth remained unchanged. Asher was not his biological son. Logan sat in stunned silence, the implications of this revelation crashing over him like a tidal wave. Camilla's affair wasn't just a recent indiscretion. It had been going on for years right under his nose. He thought back to Asher's birth, to the joy he'd felt holding his son for the first time. A son who he now knew had never truly been his. Rage bubbled up inside him, threatening to spill over. Logan wanted to scream, to break things, to confront Camilla and the man who had fathered his child. But he forced himself to remain calm. He was Logan Hayes, the man who had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing. He didn't lose control. He planned. He strategized. And then he acted. Camilla had betrayed him in the worst possible way. She had lied, cheated, and manipulated him for years. She had robbed him of the joy of raising his own child. Logan's jaw clenched as a cold determination settled over him. Camilla had destroyed their family. Now he would destroy her. He began to plot his revenge, meticulous in his planning as he was in business. He would not confront her in a fit of rage. No, he would dismantle her life piece by piece, leaving her with nothing. As Logan sat at his desk, surrounded by the evidence of Camilla's betrayal, he made a solemn vow. He would never forgive her for this, and he would make damn sure she regretted ever crossing Logan Hayes. Logan stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, straightening his tie with steady hands. His face betrayed no hint of the turmoil raging inside him. He'd always prided himself on his poker face. It had served him well in business negotiations. Now, it would serve him in dismantling his marriage. He stepped out of the bathroom, finding Camilla in their bedroom. She was slipping on a pair of heels, dressed for another night out. "You look nice," Logan said, his voice carefully neutral. Camilla glanced up, surprise flitting across her face at the compliment. "Thanks. Just meeting the girls for drinks." Again, Logan raised an eyebrow. "Seems like you've been out a lot lately." A flicker of unease passed through Camilla's eyes, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "You know how it is? Sarah's going through a rough patch with her divorce. We're trying to keep her spirits up." Logan nodded slowly. "Right. Sarah's divorce. How long has that been going on now?" A few months, I think." Camilla busied herself with her purse, avoiding his gaze. "Funny," Logan mused, leaning against the doorframe. "I ran into Sarah's husband at the gym last week. He seemed pretty happy for a guy going through a divorce." Camilla froze for a moment, then forced out a laugh. "Oh, well, you know how these things go. On again, off again. Who can keep track?" "Who indeed?" Logan murmured. He watched as Camilla hurried out, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors. As soon as the front door closed, Logan sprang into action. He headed to his home office, pulling up the carefully organized files he'd been compiling for weeks. Bank statements, credit card bills, and phone records are all meticulously documented evidence of Camilla's affair. But it wasn't enough. Logan needed to ensure that when he made his move, Camilla would be left with nothing. He picked up his phone, dialing a familiar number. "Jack, it's Logan. I need a favor." Jack Shun, Logan's longtime friend and business attorney, answered immediately. "Logan, what's up? Everything okay?" Logan's voice was cold as he replied, "No, everything is not okay. I need you to start preparing divorce papers. And I need it done quietly." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Divorce papers? Logan, are you sure about this?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything," Logan said firmly. "Camilla's been having an affair. For years, apparently. Asher isn't even mine." "Jesus," Jack breathed. "Logan, I'm so sorry." God, I don't even know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just get the papers ready. I want to make sure I'm protected. The company, the assets, I want it all locked down." "Understood," Jack replied, his voice taking on a professional tone. "I'll get right on it. And Logan, we'll make her pay for this." Logan's grip tightened on the phone. "Oh, I'm counting on it." Over the next few weeks, Logan played the role of an unsuspecting husband perfectly. He went to work, came home, and even managed to share meals with Camilla and the boys without betraying his true feelings. All the while, he was setting the stage for his revenge. One evening, as they were cleaning up after dinner, Logan casually mentioned, "I've been thinking, we should take a family trip soon. Maybe go fishing up in the mountains." Camilla looked up from the dishes, surprise evident on her face. "Really? That's a great idea, Logan. The boys would love it." Logan nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Great. How about next weekend? I'll make the arrangements." "Next weekend?" Camilla's voice hitched slightly. "Oh, I don't know if I can. I have plans." "Plans?" Logan raised an eyebrow. "What could be more important than family time, Camilla?" He watched as she squirmed, trying to come up with an excuse. "It's just, Sarah, she's still having a hard time. We were going to have a girls' weekend." Logan leaned against the counter, his eyes boring into hers. "Sarah again. Funny how her problems always seem to coincide with our family plans." Camilla's face flushed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," Logan said, his voice deceptively light. "Just an observation. But hey, if Sarah's more important than your family, who am I to argue?" He turned to leave the kitchen, pausing in the doorway. "I'll take the boys myself. You enjoy your girls' weekend." As he walked away, Logan allowed himself a small, grim smile. Everything was falling into place. The day of the fishing trip arrived. Logan packed up the car, making sure the boys had everything they needed. As they were about to leave, Camilla came out to say goodbye. "Have a great time," she said, hugging Liam and Asher. "Catch a big one for me." Logan watched the exchange, his heart twisting as he looked at Asher. The boy he'd raised as his own, loved as his own. The boy who had no idea his entire world was about to change. "We will," Logan replied, his voice steady. "You have fun too, Camilla. Don't do anything I wouldn't do." A flicker of unease passed across Camilla's face, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "Of course not. Drive safe." As they pulled out of the driveway, Liam piped up from the back seat. "Dad, I thought we were going to the mountains. This isn't the way." Logan met his son's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Change of plans, buddy. We're going somewhere else. Somewhere special." He drove them into the heart of Charlotte, pulling up in front of a luxurious hotel. The same hotel, he knew, where Camilla had been meeting her lover. "Wow!" Asher exclaimed. "Are we staying here?" Logan nodded, leading them inside. "We sure are. It's a surprise for you boys." As they entered the lavish suite, Logan's phone buzzed. A text from his private investigator. "They've arrived." Logan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He turned to his sons, his heart heavy. "Boys, there's something I need to show you." He opened his laptop, pulling up a video file. The boys gathered around, curious. "What is it, Dad?" Liam asked. Logan's voice was quiet as he replied, "The truth." He pressed play. On the screen, crystal-clear security footage showed Camilla entering the hotel, arm in arm with a muscular man. They were laughing, touching each other intimately as they made their way to the elevator. "Dad!" Asher's voice was small, confused. Is that Mom?" Logan nodded, his jaw clenched. "Yes, Asher. That's your mother. And that man? That's Brent. He's been seeing your mother for a very long time." Liam's face contorted with anger. "She's cheating on you? How could she do that?" "There's more," Logan said softly. He turned to Asher, his heart breaking. "Asher, Brent. He's your biological father." The room fell silent, the weight of Logan's words hanging heavy in the air. Asher's face crumpled, tears welling in his eyes. "What? No, that can't be true. You're my dad." Logan pulled Asher into a tight hug. "I will always be your dad, Asher. Nothing will ever change that. But biologically, Brent is your father." Liam jumped up, his fist clenched. "I hate her. How could she do this to us?" "Sit down, Liam," Logan said firmly. "I know you're angry. I am too. But what's going to happen next? That's on me. Not you boys." He stood, walking to the window. In the reflection, he could see Camilla and Brent entering the hotel. Right on schedule. "From now on," Logan said, his voice cold, "Brent's in charge. I'm done." He snapped a photo of the three of them, capturing the moment of revelation. Without another word, he walked out of the room, leaving his sons stunned and confused. In the hallway, Logan took a deep breath, steadying himself. Then he made his way to the room where he knew Camilla and Brent would be. He knocked on the door, hearing muffled voices and hurried movements inside. After a moment, the door opened, revealing a disheveled Camilla. Her eyes widened in shock. "Logan? What are you doing here?" Logan's voice was ice as he replied, "Surprising you, darling. Isn't that what a good husband does?" He pushed past her into the room, finding Brent hastily pulling on his shirt. "You must be Brent," Logan said, his tone conversational. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." Brent looked between Logan and Camilla, panic evident on his face. "Look, man, I can explain." "No need," Logan cut him off. "I think the situation is pretty clear. You've been fucking my wife for years. Hell, you even fathered one of my children. Did I miss anything?" Camilla gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Logan, please let me explain." "Explain?" Logan's laugh was bitter. "What's there to explain, Camilla? How have you lied to me for years? How did you let me raise another man's child as my own? Please enlighten me." Tears streamed down Camilla's face. "I'm sorry, Logan. I never meant for this to happen. I love you. I love our family." "Don't you dare," Logan snarled, his composure finally cracking. "Don't you dare say you love us. If you loved us, you wouldn't have destroyed everything we built together. He turned to Brent, who was standing awkwardly by the bed. Congratulations, Brent. You're a father. Asher's your son. He's in room 507 with his brother. I suggest you go introduce yourself properly. Brent's face paled. What? I'm not ready to be a father. Logan's smile was cruel. Well, that's too bad. Because from now on, he's your responsibility. I'm done cleaning up your messes. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a thick envelope. He tossed it on the bed. Divorce papers, Camilla. I suggest you read them carefully. You'll find I've been quite thorough in protecting what's mine. Camilla lunged for him, grabbing his arm. Logan, please. We can work this out. I'll do anything. Please don't throw away our marriage. Logan jerked his arm away, his eyes cold. Our marriage? You threw that away the moment you decided to fuck another man. It's over, Camilla. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. Oh, and Camilla? Don't bother coming home. Your things will be packed and sent to you. I suggest you find a good lawyer. You're going to need one. With that, he walked out, leaving Camilla sobbing and Brent stunned. As he made his way back to his sons, Logan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The truth was out. The destruction of Camilla's carefully crafted lies was complete. Now it was time to rebuild, to create a new life for himself and for Liam. And though it pained him, he knew he had to let Asher go. It wasn't the boy's fault, but Logan couldn't bear the constant reminder of Camilla's betrayal. As he opened the door to the room where his sons waited, Logan took a deep breath. The hardest part was yet to come, but he was Logan Hayes. He had built an empire from nothing. He would survive this, and he would come out stronger. And Camilla? She would learn the hard way that betraying Logan Hayes was the biggest mistake of her life. Logan straightened his tie, his reflection in the courthouse mirror showing a man composed and determined. Today was the day he'd been preparing for the final showdown with Camilla. As he stepped into the bustling corridor, he spotted Matthew Colburn, Camilla's aggressive lawyer, huddled with his client. Camilla looked pale, her designer outfit a far cry from her usual polished appearance. Logan approached, his face impassive. Colburn straightened, puffing out his chest. Mr. Hayes, Colburn said, his tone clipped. I hope you're prepared to be reasonable today. My client is entitled to save it for the judge, Colburn. Logan cut him off. His eyes locked with Camilla's. Ready for this? Camilla's lip trembled. Logan, please. Can we talk about this? In private. Logan's gaze remained cold. We're way past talking, Camilla. You made your choices. Now face the consequences. Before she could respond, the bailiff called out, Hayes versus Hayes. The court is now in session. Inside the courtroom, Logan sat stoically as Colburn launched into his opening statement. Your Honor, Colburn began, his voice dripping with fake sincerity. My client, Mrs. Hayes, has been a devoted wife and mother for over 15 years. Yes, she made a mistake, a single indiscretion born out of loneliness and neglect. Logan's jaw clenched at the blatant lie. He caught his lawyer's eye, giving a slight nod. They were ready for this. When it was their turn, Logan's lawyer, Sarah Chun, stood. Your Honor, Mr. Colburn paints a touching picture. Unfortunately, it's pure fiction. We have irrefutable evidence that Mrs. Hayes' single indiscretion was, in fact, a long-term affair spanning over a decade. She produced a thick folder, bank statements showing Mrs. Hayes' misuse of joint funds to finance her affair, hotel receipts, phone records, and most damning of all, DNA test results proving that Mr. Hayes is not the biological father of their younger son. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Logan kept his eyes forward, refusing to look at Camilla. Colburn sputtered, Objection, Your Honor. This is nothing but character assassination. Overruled, the judge said firmly. Mrs. Chun, please continue. The trial stretched on, a parade of evidence and testimony that systematically dismantled Camilla's claims. Logan took the stand, his voice steady as he recounted the discovery of Camilla's betrayal. Mr. Hayes, Colburn began his cross-examination. Isn't it true that you were often absent due to work commitments? That you prioritize your company over your family? Logan's eyes narrowed. I built that company to provide for my family, Mr. Colburn. Every late night, Every business trip, it was all for them. For a future, I thought we were building together. And yet, Colburn pressed. You never noticed your wife's unhappiness? Her loneliness? Objection, Sarah called out. Argumentative. Sustained, the judge nodded. Logan leaned forward, his voice low and intense. I trusted my wife, Mr. Colburn. I believed in our vows, in the life we'd built. If Camilla was unhappy, she had every opportunity to talk to me. Instead, she chose to lie, to cheat, to pass off another man's child as mine. Those aren't the actions of a lonely, neglected wife. They're the actions of a selfish, deceitful woman who cared more about her own desires than her family. Colburn faltered, clearly not expecting such a direct response. No further questions, Your Honor. As Logan stepped down, he caught Camilla's eye. She was crying silently, but he felt nothing. No pity, no remorse. Just a cold determination to see this through. The judge called a recess, and Logan stepped out into the hallway. He found Liam waiting, looking uncomfortable in his suit. Hey, champ, Logan said softly. You didn't have to come. Liam shrugged, his face a mix of anger and sadness. I wanted to. For you, Dad. Logan pulled him into a hug, his throat tight. I'm sorry you're going through this, Liam. But I promise you, we're going to be okay. I know. Liam mumbled into Logan's shoulder. I miss Asher. Is he really not coming back? Logan sighed, pulling back to look at his son. That's up to Asher, buddy. And Brent. But no matter what, Asher will always be your brother. That doesn't change. Liam nodded, wiping his eyes. I hate her, Dad, for what she did to us. I know, Logan said, his voice firm. But don't let that hate consume you, Liam. We're going to build a new life, you and me, a better one. As they headed back into the courtroom, Logan spotted Brent lurking near the back, looking uncomfortable. Their eyes met, and Logan felt a surge of satisfaction at the fear he saw there. The final arguments were made, and then it was time for the judge's ruling. The courtroom fell silent as she cleared her throat. After careful consideration of all evidence presented, this court finds in favor of Mr. Hayes, the judge declared. Mrs. Hayes' infidelity and financial mismanagement have been clearly established. Therefore, Mr. Hayes will retain full ownership of his company and primary custody of their biological son, Liam. Logan allowed himself a small, grim smile as the judge continued. Mrs. Hayes will receive a modest portion of the marital assets, as outlined in the prenuptial agreement. As for the younger child, Asher, given the DNA evidence, custody will be determined in a separate hearing with his biological father. The gavel came down with a final, resounding thud. It was over. Logan stood, shaking hands with Sarah. Thank you, he said simply. She nodded, understanding the weight of those two words. You're welcome, Logan. Take care of yourself and Liam. As Logan turned to leave, Camilla rushed over, her face streaked with tears. Logan, please. You can't do this. Where am I supposed to go? What about Asher? Logan's voice was ice as he replied. You should have thought about that before you decided to destroy our family, Camilla. As for Asher, that's between you and Brent now. He walked away, leaving Camilla sobbing in the middle of the courtroom. As he passed Brent, Logan paused. I suggest you step up, Brent, he said coldly. You got a son to take care of now. Brent nodded weakly, looking shell-shocked. Logan felt a twinge of guilt about Asher, but he pushed it aside. He couldn't be the boy's father, not now. The wound was too raw, the reminder too painful. Weeks passed. Logan threw himself into his work, into rebuilding his life with Liam. They moved to a new house, started fresh. But the pain lingered, a constant undercurrent in their lives. One evening, as Logan was working late in his home office, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He opened it to find a photo of Asher, looking sad and lost in what appeared to be a small, run-down apartment. Another text followed. He misses you. We both do. Can we talk? Logan's hand tightened on the phone. For a moment, he was tempted to reach out, to try and salvage something from the wreckage of his family. But then he remembered the years of lies, the depth of Camilla's betrayal. With a decisive click, he blocked the number. Just then, there was a knock at his office door. Dad! Liam's voice called out. "Can I come in?" "Sure, buddy," Logan replied, pushing thoughts of Camilla and Asher aside. Liam entered, looking nervous. "Dad, I got into that summer engineering program. The one in California." Logan's face broke into a genuine smile. "That's fantastic, Liam. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks," Liam said, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. "But it's for 6 weeks. Is it okay if I go? I don't want to leave you alone." Logan stood, walking around the desk to put his hands on Liam's shoulders. "Liam, listen to me. You are not responsible for my happiness. I want you to go, to learn, to experience new things. I'll be fine." Liam hugged him tightly. "Thanks, Dad. I love you." "I love you too, buddy," Logan said, his throat tight. As Liam left the room, Logan turned to look out the window. The city skyline stretched before him, a vista of possibilities. He thought about how far he'd come from that small town in South Carolina to here. He'd built an empire once. He could do it again, but this time it would be different. This time, he'd be wiser, stronger. He'd learned the hard way that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. Logan's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Rachel Waverly, a lawyer he'd met recently at a charity event. "Still up for drinks tomorrow?" it read. Logan smiled, typing back a quick absolutely. Rachel was smart, independent, and driven everything Camilla had pretended to be. And more importantly, she understood the value of loyalty. As he got ready for bed that night, Logan caught sight of himself in the mirror. The man staring back at him was older, harder, but unbroken. He'd survived Camilla's betrayal. He protected what was his. And now, he was ready to start again. The next morning, Logan woke early, his mind clear and focused. He had a meeting with his executive team to discuss expansion plans for the company. As he knotted his tie, he felt a sense of anticipation. This was what he was good at: building, growing, and conquering. Just as he was about to leave, he noticed a small package on the kitchen counter. It was addressed to Camilla, forwarded from their old address. For a moment, Logan was tempted to throw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of him. Inside was a single photograph in a simple frame. Logan's breath caught as he recognized the picture he'd taken that day at the hotel, capturing the moment when Liam and Asher learned the truth about their mother's betrayal. A note was attached. "You chose this. Remember that." Logan stared at the photo for a long moment, a mix of emotions swirling within him. Then, with a decisive motion, he placed it back in the package and sealed it up. He scribbled Camilla's new address on it, a small, rundown apartment complex across town. As he handed the package to his assistant to be mailed, Logan felt a sense of finality. This was the last piece of unfinished business, the final reminder of the life he'd left behind. "Is that everything, Mr. Hayes?" his assistant asked. Logan nodded, a small, grim smile playing on his lips. "Yes, that's everything. Now, let's focus on the future." He strode out of the house, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Logan Hayes had been knocked down, but he'd gotten back up stronger than ever. And this time, nothing and no one would stand in his way. As he drove to the office, Logan's phone rang. It was Rachel. "Morning, Logan." Her voice came through the speaker, warm and professional. "Just wanted to confirm our dinner plans for tonight. I've made reservations at that new place downtown." "Sounds perfect," Logan replied, feeling a spark of anticipation. "Looking forward to it, Rachel." As he hung up, Logan caught sight of his reflection in the rearview mirror. The man looking back at him was different from the one who had discovered his wife's betrayal all those months ago. This man was harder, yes, but also more resilient, more determined. Logan pulled into the parking lot of his company headquarters, the towering building a testament to everything he'd built. As he walked through the lobby, employees nodded respectfully, a few offering quiet "Good morning, Mr. Hayes." In the elevator, Logan allowed himself a moment of reflection. He'd lost a lot of the family he thought he had and the life he'd built. But he'd gained something too, a clear vision of who he was and of what he was capable of, and the knowledge that he could trust himself, even if he couldn't trust anyone else. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Logan stepped out, ready to lead his company into a new era of growth and success. Whatever the future held, he would face it on his own terms. As he pushed open the boardroom doors, Logan felt a sense of purpose wash over him. This was where he belonged. This was what he was meant to do. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice strong and confident. "Let's get started."